Hey, I'm Sierra Riley Wilson, and you're listening to the Quantum Leap podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome to the Quantum Leap Aftershow. I'm Albie. And Hayden, I command you to show yourself.
Marty, how did we get here? What year are we in?
He has a guest with him this week.
Somehow we've ended up back in the timeline where Biff controls everything. I've been committed, as you can see. But thankfully, Marty's come here to try and rescue me. Now, this is my mate Harry, who I've been getting hooked on Quantum Leap very recently. So when he found out that we were doing the Halloween episode, Harry was very keen to join us. So worked out well so that we could be either Doc and Marty or Rick and Morty, depending on what you prefer.
Also joining us this week is from Thinking Outside the Long Box. It's Juan. Hey, Juan, producer of the podcast. How you doing? People that might not know Juan from the classic Quantum Leap podcast, let us know a little bit about yourself.
I'm the other quiet half of Barren Space Productions, I guess you could say. Came on early into the Quantum Leap podcast world a long time ago. I've been running TOTOB.com ever since. Pop culture podcasts. We talk about everything pop culture.
It's good stuff. And also this week, another panelist from the Quantum Leap podcast proper, our in-house resident Quantum Leap archaeologist. It's Allison Pregler. Hey, Allison, how you doing?
Hi. I'm doing good. Welcome. I brought my a Meowgency cat with me.
Oh, it's Ash. We all love Ash.
It's Ash.
So you brought Ash. Juan brought his sonic screwdriver, and Hayden brought Harry.
Yeah.
So we all have someone.
Except Serenity.
You brought the ears.
I brought the ears just in case of a Meowgency. So, best part of the episode.
Allison hated that, but I popped hard for it. So.
You didn't like that, Allison? Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Allison, I think you better.
Juan, what were your first impressions of "O Ye of Little Faith"?
So this was, I think, probably my favorite episode of the 7. But I think it's because it strays away from the rest of the 6 episodes. Mm-hmm. It's so much more like what Quantum Leap reminds me of old. I mean, the back of the project stuff was like 5 minutes, I think. And that's what I enjoyed the most about it, is it was mostly just Leap.
Mm-hmm. I appreciated that as well. Allison, first impressions of O Ye of Little Faith.
Yeah, this is great. I love Halloween, and I love having to watch as little of the project as possible. Pretty cool. I had a good time. There's a lot of fun stuff in this one.
It was kind of spooky. It was fun. I like the people at the project, but it was nice to focus on the Leap for a change. So I didn't notice it until probably my second viewing, to where it was just mostly the Leap. And it did have that feeling of the original series, because every time we were getting invested in Ben, they weren't cutting to something else. That we were still staying with Ben, which was pretty cool. Okay. Yeah. Hayden, what do you think of O Ye of Little Faith?
Well, actually, I think Harry should go first. Yeah.
All right, Harry, what did you think of O Ye of Little Faith?
I had similar thoughts to everyone else so far. It's probably my favorite episode of the show I've seen so far. I didn't, until it was just mentioned, I actually didn't realize how little project stuff there was in it. But yeah, that probably did give a helping hand to the episode for me. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it personally. Yeah. Well, I'm doing
Hayden,
it, Allison.
what did?
I'm doing it, Allison. When I don't like something, I'll go last. Because actually, this one is my least favorite of the 7. And I'm wondering if we all watched the same episode, to be honest. I actually
But
really
some of us were
didn't
drinking
like...
gin.
Well, part of the problem was I kind of judge a TV show or an episode on how easily I could write it myself. And let's just say I had this written in my head long before the episode finished. And what you're saying about the fact that it didn't have very much of the project, I really didn't like that, actually. It made me wonder, did they run out of money? They really did a bottle episode in this one. There was no magic, very little Jen, very little Addison, very little Ian, and I'm actually really enjoying the CSI side of things. Sorry, Allison. But so the fact that they had virtually none of that and virtually no Addison in the entire episode either, even aptly, it just really rubbed me the wrong way. Personally, I think this was a good episode of television, but not a good episode of Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I do think that the lack of project may be because they're building up to something for their fall finale. Also.
I agree.
Well, that may be the case too, but it did really make me wonder if they ran out of money, especially because it was so special effects heavy. Did they have to literally not pay the person who would obviously be costing the most, and that's Ernie Hudson, and reduce down everyone else at the project to the point where they virtually could have been avoided in the episode entirely and not have it affect anything? As much as I loved it, the emergency part by Ian really wasn't necessary. So
that was the best part.
So the project stuff, what little we had, was virtually negligible, just because it didn't really add much to the episode anyway. We lost most of the cast, and I personally didn't like the league very much either. So that's my viewpoint on it. I'm entitled to an opinion, just like everyone else is. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you're are in a straitjacket right now, so you might just be in character. My
Albie,
first impression of the episode. Yeah. I loved it because I love all of it. Quantum Leap. I always love Quantum Leap. I really liked it. I did see the gin part coming a mile away. I mean, you couldn't help but see that. I mean, every shot had a glass of gin in it, and the final shot of the gin was like 3/4 of the screen, I think. So they were like, if you missed it up until this point, it's the gin. So, because at first, before the gin, I was thinking, maybe there's some like moldy bread going on and people are tripping, different things back then that caused people to hallucinate. I never thought there was a demon at all. I didn't think the demon, or what were they calling it? The Wraith? I think they were calling it the Wraith. In the descriptive audio
or something?
Dybbuk was
the audio.
Yeah, in the descriptive audio, they're calling it a wraith. The Jewish maid called it a Dybbuk, which at first I thought she was saying like Dybbuk's, like the old video codec or something. Codec. I enjoyed it. I had never heard that before this episode, so that was cool to learn something. I thought it was cool that there was less stuff back at the project, but I did enjoy the quality of the stuff back at the project. The scene between Addison and Jen, I really thought was really good. That part, that just like, heart to heart talk and the friends supporting each other, I really enjoyed that part. I enjoy both those actresses and characters. I enjoyed the meowgency part, of course, because Ian, I'm a big fan of Mason Alexander Park and the Ian character, so like whatever they do, I'm pretty much obsessed with. Does anybody know if we got confirmation of who played Shadow? But from the publicity still, it looked like Caitlin in some kind of makeup playing the Wraith character moving around Ben.
It looked like her, but I don't think after watching the episode that it is. I mean, the Shadow was supposed to be Janice for the most part, so it's very confusing if they had cast Caitlin to play that part, especially when you don't see any of the makeup that we saw in the promo photos. So that was just a little weird to me, but I don't think it's her now.
The stills themselves, if you see the shadow and the makeup, they're just creepy as hell.
Yeah, I wish that we'd seen it in the episode. That would have been nice. Yeah, it is supposed to be Janice, although the very first appearance, it makes no sense if it's supposed to be Janice. I'm sorry. You can't say that's a glitch. That's nonsense to me. But it was officially confirmed that's what it was supposed to be. And so I to be honest, that's kind of just lying to the audience. Sorry. Like if you reveal that it was a glitch that she looked like a demon, it's like, all right, so you just lied to misdirect us.
Did the writer of the episode tweet you? Is that who tweeted you, or who tweeted you the script? Was it Margarita Matthews, or was it?
No, it was Dean Georgaris. How do you pronounce his name?
Did
anyone know?
I haven't heard it out loud. Yeah, only in my head. So
yeah, he's pretty active on Twitter, and he tweeted about it and he confirmed that's what it was. And then I was like, why'd she look like a demon? And he just sent us he sent an excerpt of the script, and I'm like, this doesn't answer my question. She looked like a demon. But Ben's reaction to that was super funny though, when he says, oh hell no. That was the hardest I've laughed at this show so far. It was really good.
Rennie was rolling with that. She just thought that was the best part ever, and I thought, wow, this really sets this series apart from the other series. And Ben was like, oh hell no. That was a really cool.
Yeah. It was like suddenly you were Chris Farley in the Chris Farley show, just like, you remember that? That was awesome.
It was awesome.
Did that hurt when you walked on the glass in the movie? All right, stupid. Seamless.
Hayden, are you hardwired in? Are you hardwired in? Do you have a Cat 5 going into your computer? We might have to continue with just a still of you.
I think it's just sort of jerky.
All right.
Have we started again?
I don't know.
Have we started? Hey, this was a wacky episode of Quantum Leap 2022.
Yeah, it was really good.
You know what I've been noticing about the episodes as they go along? Everyone's becoming more comfortable in the role, figuring out what they want to pull from themselves, and Raymond Lee especially is just a funny dude. And in this episode in particular, I was thinking I really understood how he would approach the episode, how Ben would approach the episode versus Sam. So I'm like, I feel like I'm getting Ben's whole deal, because I feel like they would approach this in different ways. So I thought that was really cool. And I like that he's funny, but it's not like he's just goofball all the time. It just pulls it out when it needs to. And it was great for something like this because it helped hold some levity out when some scarier things are happening.
The comedy that comes from Ben is not to me written as comedy. It's just who Ben is, and he's just like how he would react in any situation. And I love that they're just going with that.
It's perfect Quantum Leap because it's reacting to the situation. It's not necessarily funny written as a joke to be a punchline. It's just it happens to be funny because this is a very scary thing happening. But him saying, oh, hell no, it's not funny for him, but it's very funny for us.
And I can picture
and that's
any
something
of us
they would do in
that.
the old show. Yeah.
I can picture any of us saying that if that happened to us, because Juan, say stuff.
Like I said before, this is probably my favorite episode. We at TOTOB, we talk a lot about rules that can be followed within whatever project we're talking about. And I think that's, again, why I like this episode so much, is that it felt so much like Quantum Leap, because it follows those rules that Quantum Leap of old has established. If I'm watching a Jason Voorhees movie, I know there are going to be campers who are dying, and there's people going to be doing it at some point in this movie. You know what I mean? And the new revival is such a stark difference from what I used to remember. That doesn't mean I don't like it. I actually really enjoy the show still, but it feels like a different show that I'm watching. And just watching this one plot, all we're watching is the exorcism and how he handles it, and it just reminded me so much of the last Halloween episode. It was just I really enjoyed it, man. It's my favorite one for sure.
Down the path of the demon actually existing, because every time Quantum Leap has delved into something that seems supernatural, they've always taken the stance that it has always existed. Sam never believes in it to start with. Al's always freaked out by it, but there's a scientific explanation, but then at the end they proved that it was always real anyway. So I'm very surprised that they didn't go down that path. I'm kind of pleased about it, to be honest, but it did leave me confused until the second time watching it, when you can analyze a little more and think, well, what was this shadow throughout that Ben was actually seeing? I didn't realise till the second time watching it that it was Janice trying to connect with him. I thought it had been the hallucination from drinking the devil's snare, but then I realised, no, the shadow appeared before he drank anything. So, yeah. I don't mind the fact that it took a little while to think about it, but I'm just saying it did surprise me that they didn't go down that route of having the demon actually exist.
I think that did they? I don't know if they went down the line of the demon existing, but I feel like they went down the line a little bit of it being supernatural, because she mentions that she saw him as an angel at the very end when she first saw him. So it kind of did lend itself to, like, maybe it was kind of real, or maybe she could see him somehow through her hallucination.
Yeah, I mean, you could interpret it that way. I think they were trying to imply maybe her being under the influence of something did that, but I mean, I guess like that would fit in with old Quantum Leap if you interpreted it either way.
That was my take on it, Allison.
Yeah. And also the fact that she was so close to death. We saw a couple of times in the original series that people who are very close to death will see Sam and Al as well. So, yeah, there's also that.
It was kind of nice to see them experimenting with that, like people being able to see Ben, or in the future see Addison or stuff like that. Like, we haven't seen any of that yet, so it's nice to see it introduced in a little bit.
Yeah, my whole thought was she was hallucinating, so she was probably closer to in a different frame of mind, like a child or an animal almost. So that's why she was able to see Ben for who he is. So that was my thought. So it didn't seem out of place at all. It seems like we have different opinions, so it'll be very interesting to keep talking about this episode. I want to go to our first interview now. Does anybody remember an episode called Salvation or Bust?
Seems familiar.
And so we have a few interviews this week from Salvation or Bust, but before we do that, we have to pay some bills. Hayden, who is our sponsor this week?
Well, our sponsor is Cancakes, but we actually have a public service announcement. Any cans of Cancakes that you might still have from prior to the year 1936, remember they do last forever. If you have any prior to the year 1936, there is an urgent recall because there are traces of devil's snare in them. Any after 1936 are fine, but just make sure if you do have any prior to 1936, please make sure that you contact campakes.com.
It's quantumleappodcast.com/campakes. You can get there from that and then click our affiliate link, but in this case, not an affiliate link, but the recall. So that's important news. So I'm glad had no idea about that. And I had some tonight.
Yeah, well, you're probably fine even if you did did ingest a little bit of it. It's only if you have it on, on repeat that you are going to end up getting sick. But just for the interest of public safety, it's better to get a brand new can, and they'll replace it for you for nothing.
Ted Monte from Salvation or Bust.
Should you choose to reject my employer's offer, they have empowered me and my posse here to see to your permanent relocation, at which point all that was once yours will become theirs.
We told your employer we reject their paltry offer.
Tell him, Sheriff.
I'm to inform you that we have petitioned the governor against the railroad's claims.
Ain't no sheriff or governor gonna help you out here.
Hi there, we're very excited today to be bringing you an interview with Ted Monte. Ted, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. I absolutely love the show, and I'm fascinated by you guys.
Great, well, we're really excited to be able to talk to you. Ted recently played the sheriff in Salvation or Bust, so we're going to be talking about Quantum Leap for sure, but... First, you've had an incredible career over the last 30 years, particularly over the last few. Can you talk me through a little bit about your history to date, some of your high points?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the very first film that I was ever in was a film called Silence of the Lambs. And the really cool thing about that is it was my first feature film that I'd ever been in, ever. And it was with the director, Jonathan Demme. The late Jonathan Demme. And one of the coolest things I loved about being on that set is my first day on the set, and I just had a tiny little part in there, but my first day on the set when I walked into the lunchroom, and again, it's one of the greatest food films I've ever been on. I mean, they were serving swordfish and prime rib, and it was just a bonanza. But my first day on the set, I didn't really know anybody. And I walk in, and I'd gotten, my food, and walk into the big area where all the actors and the director and producers and everybody's in there. And I had no idea where to go to or to see anybody. I didn't know anybody. And I'm walking into that room, and Jonathan Demme jumps up from his table, and he's like, Ted, come over here. I didn't even know he even knew who I was, So I walk over, and he goes, come here, sit down with us. And he introduces me to his wife who was there, introduces me to Jody, introduces me to everybody on the film. And he just treated me and really everybody like we were family. I mean, it was like this incredibly welcoming, warm environment, and it was my first experience into movies, and having that as my first experience was absolutely phenomenal. And then what happened with the movie afterward was pretty spectacular.
Silence of the Lambs, I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
No, it's a obscure little indie film. Yeah, I know.
What a way to start.
Wow, that's awesome.
I know, and you think you can, wow, I've made it now. But and I've done from there I've done gajillion commercials, the TV's episodic, blah 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 blah. But I'll fast forward. Well, before I get into some of the recent stuff I've done, now that it's Halloween, I did a little indie film a few years ago that got quite a bit of notice. It's called Circus Kane. And my wife and I were just on Netflix the other night, and it popped up as one of the Halloween films to watch. So I got to throw that out there, Circus Kane. So it's a fun little indie film where a clown kills people. So it's
fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, I know. If you like that kind of stuff, and I do, it's a great fun little show. And recently, I have to say that, I'm very proud of what's been happening recently. I was really fortunate. I'm sure everybody loves and knows The Godfather. I was fortunate to be cast in a role in The Offer, which is about the making of The Godfather, all seen from Al Ruddy, the producer's point of view. Giovanni Ribisi, Miles Teller, Juno Temple, just phenomenal. One of the coolest things about this show. And I don't know, again, I don't know how many actors have talked about, what happens. Usually when you get a job, there's no rehearsal like there used to be. It's like you get the job, you work, you get on set, and then if you get to run lines with somebody, you're happy. This one, Dexter Fletcher, who directed this thing, we got probably about a month, maybe month and a half before we started the filming. He sent all the actors who were in the first couple of episodes, he sent us an email. And he said, I want you guys to come to set. We're going to be doing rehearsals for this. So we had a month of rehearsals. And he sent us an email saying, I want you all to have a backstory before you come into this set. And I want you to do your backstory from as far back as you want to go. And then it stops where you enter the script. And what we did is when we came into rehearsals, and again, this is unheard of today, that we go into rehearsals. When we walked in, we had this big rehearsal hall in downtown LA. And all of us were there, Miles, Juno, Giovanni, everybody's there. And all the prop team had set up this entire rehearsal space with items from that period, the 1970s. We had plates, we had glasses, we had pictures, we had, books that Coppola had written. We had all kinds of stuff from that period so that when we weren't rehearsing, we would be living in that environment. And then as part of this, each one of us read our backstory to all the other actors. And so we all got to know who we were before we joined. And one of the things about Dexter is he was saying he wanted to relive that era. He kind of wanted to do what Coppola had done, which was create a troupe. He said, I want an acting troupe. He's, back in theater days, he's a big, theater actor. And he wanted us to be in that kind of environment. It's what happens to you when you're working in a theater. You become really close and you trust each other. So we really developed that kind of work while we were doing, and it was a month of rehearsals before we even started. Coolest thing about it too is when we actually got onto the lot, we had camera and lighting rehearsals too. So it's like, and totally unheard of today. We actually went in there, we did all camera rehearsals and all that kind of stuff. Dexter, he's the kind of director that would come up to you during one of our rehearsals. I was reading a bunch of stuff on Mafia and the Five Families and that kind of stuff, trying to get background and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden I noticed somebody was standing in front of me, and I look up and Dexter's just staring at me. And he looks at me and he goes, you're going to be fantastic in this thing. And then he walks off. It's just, and that's the kind of director that he was. And when we actually started shooting the thing, he would because it's COVID time, so everybody's in masks and everybody's separated, and we're shooting on the lot, and it was on the Paramount lot. And it's like there must have been 200 people. There's producers, there's all kinds of monitors and all kinds of stuff, and he's in a different room. But after every take, he'd come running in, and he'd come in and he'd give you some direction. Oh, I want you to do this, do this, do this, and then he'd run away and then go back, and then he'd come back, and then he grabbed me at one point. He pulled me away because I had a scene with Giovanni Ribisi, and he's whispering to me. He goes, I want you to just laugh at him, just laugh at him. And so I go, okay. So then I go and sit, and we do in the middle of our scene. I just start laughing at Giovanni, and he reacts to that and all this stuff. And then Dexter comes to the scene. He comes over, he grabs me, he pulls me. I'm like, you're brilliant. He goes, you're out acting Ribisi. And so, and Giovanni, I don't feel that way at all. But it was a great, funny moment, and that was the kind of environment that Dexter had created in The Offer. So it was really just absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So
yeah. Do you think that you were able to get that sort of leeway, sort of that expanded time and comfort? I guess twofold question here, because it wasn't necessarily a network show, but more of a limited series for Paramount Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Does that give you a certain amount of breathing space because it's more of like a prestige TV kind of deal? And I guess the second part is, do you think the director was so keyed up on getting you into sort of that old time feeling, because as a project related to something as iconic as The Godfather, you're going to have a lot of cinephiles watching who are especially invested in legacy of The Godfather. Do you think he was trying to live up to that legacy as best?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think, and Dexter, I think twofold. I mean, you have Dexter, who has such a background of work, who's such an amazing director and actor. And you have Paramount, who was using this as one of their big pushes for the Paramount streaming. So I think they probably did give more leeway to him and to us than would normally happen. And, it was when I did that with Dexter and with everybody else that was there, that felt to me like what I thought this business was going to be like all the time, and it was really, it was a pleasure, and they gave us that kind of freedom. But yeah, I think absolutely, because of the reasons you suggested, they did give us that kind of leeway.
That's really great. So, I mean, how does that contrast to doing a regular network drama like Quantum Leap?
I'll tell you something. Quantum Leap, it's in a whole different world, because first of all, well, I guess it's not, because it's as iconic as The Godfather. The thing about Quantum Leap is,
I mean, we like to think so.
I know. Well, it is. It really is. I mean, I watched the show. I was a huge fan of the show. The thing about Quantum Leap is that it had its own iconic value to it. And forget about just all the stuff with Scott Bakula and the whole show. But when you come onto it and you're rebooting something that has that, you're on the lot, again, which is like, it's such top secret, just to get there. I live here and I got lost. I'm just like, I'm going on the lot. You're like, no, you're not parking on this part of the lot. You're parking in the top secret part of the lot, and we're going to bus you to where you're supposed to be. I'm like, okay. So, I get on this bus, I go out to, God knows where, out in the, on the lot. And so, and then you wait in your trailer, you wait there forever till they're ready for you. And then all of a sudden you walk into this Western town on the lot. And then you have like these tour buses that are going by that are stopping with everybody filming and, taking pictures. And I walk on here, and Silas is who I'm a huge fan of, Silas Howard, our director. I mean, the work that he has done has been so real and so, I think, so groundbreaking. So I was a fan of his coming on. I was a fan of the show coming on. So it was, and you get to play cowboys. I mean, I'm sitting there, and the whole wardrobe thing was amazing. Trying on 100 different hats. Your gun. It's everything as a kid that I wanted to do. How many times did I play cowboys and Indians, and now I get to freaking be here. And so it was absolutely amazing. And Silas, he was terrific, because it's like, well, we didn't have the kind of rehearsal. We must have done 1,000 takes, and the thing about it is that every time, because I get shot in this episode, and I hit the ground, I must have hit the ground like 30 times. And every time, Silas would have different ways of us doing it, different angles. He'd add stuff to the scene. So we were there's a lot of stuff that, there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it into the editing that we have. Like, we have this entrance, like when you read the script, it reads as, me and my deputies are coming out a la Tombstone. And I was kind of like the Wyatt Earp character coming, and we walked out from out of town and out of the sheriff's office, and we walk up to this big thing. It's this big epic kind of thing. A lot of that didn't make it into the final pieces for, you have no control over that stuff. But in that final shootout, it was just absolutely terrific. And it was so much fun. It's a couple of things that happened on there. First of all, I'm getting shot constantly. So when I would stand up, it got to me, I must have had like 50, 75 extras in that town all over. So I was getting shot so much that pretty soon the extras, when I would get up and we'd get to the next tape, they'd start singing, "I shot the sheriff." But it was like my theme song every time we'd redo that thing. And then so some of the other extras would be going, "Come on, sheriff, don't get shot this time. He's gunning for it." So it was a whole like thing. Yeah, it was really fun. One of the things also, the script changed from when I first auditioned for it. When I first auditioned for it, I was going to be riding a horse, and I actually grew up on a working cattle ranch. So I think I'm actually the only person, except for the stunt people, that actually knew how to ride a horse. But they changed it so that I wasn't on a horse anymore. And you guys, we've seen the episode already, so you know what happened. So William is on the horse, and William, I don't think, has done a lot of riding. And so you'll notice, and when you watch this is an interesting kind of dad thing. So William was having trouble controlling his horse. And he's got this, this epic bad guy monologue stuff where he's telling the town what's going to happen, and he's doing all this stuff. And then his horse would start to move away, and he would, so it would like be twisting. And you'll notice on one of the shots, all the stunt people behind him are pointed this way, and William's horse is pointed this way. This is one of those times, because his horse was originally this way and he was supposed to be facing it. It was one of those times that the horse kind of like did one of these things, and so they captured him stuff while he's sideways. But in order to get the horse to stand still, one of the wranglers comes in, he's holding the horse. So the camera's up here and he's holding the thing here. So he's able to control the horse, and they're giving him direction, the wrangler direction. Can you push his head up so we can see his ears? So he'd be doing this stuff. And then the thing that just cracked me up is, the horse is just standing there being held. He's kind of looking down, and the wrangler puts his hand on the ground to just kind of brace himself. And the horse just stares at his hand. And then the horse like puts his foot up and then tries to step on the wrangler's hand. It's like, just Mango, stop that. And this is happening take after take. Every time the horse would like see that hand and he'd be like, bah. So he finally had to just hold him with two hands there till they got all that take. So that was, I thought that was pretty funny. Let me
just
top that one.
Yeah, maybe we could go back just a little bit. You mentioned about the fact that the script had changed between the point of audition and you actually getting there. How much of the script had you seen at the point that you auditioned? Because you were only in that one scene. Is that what you knew of the episode?
Yeah, that's all. That's in the beginning. That's all I saw was just, I think it was like 3 pages, initially. So that's all they give you in the very beginning when you first do the audition, is just this, little bit to do that with. But then once I got the job, then, they give you the full script, and then it changed a couple of times from that original audition anyway. So they're constantly rewriting and changing. Which is actually different. I was fortunate enough to work on Westworld this last season 4, and they are like top secret about everything. When I first auditioned for that role on Westworld, it was I have a recurring part on that, but initially it was just supposed to be one episode, and I did that initial scene, and there was all kinds of delays for a lot of reasons, and it was like months after I'd auditioned for it. And I just knew that, the few lines that I had on this one thing. And then they came back and they said, well, we've expanded the role. Are you still interested? I'm like, yeah, of course I am. Are you still interested in me? Because now that they've expanded the role, of course, now you've got, bigger name people. It's like, well, great, and they asked me to re-audition for that. So they gave me, again, little pieces, of future episodes. But in the end, when I actually got the job, all I ever got was the pages that I was on. They never showed me who or what, and they made us sign. I mean, we had to sign NDAs not to talk about it till it aired. All this kind of stuff. It was really like super, super top secret stuff. In fact, I remember Evan was great, but I was working with Nicole Passant, and she has this scene. Again, I guess I'm known for getting killed in a lot of episodes on TV. That's my big niche now. So when I get killed in Westworld, afterwards she's like, oh my God, now I understand why I have to kill you. And I'm like, why? She goes, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I'm like, but I'm the reason. She goes, I know, but it's in the next episode. I can't tell you. So yeah, they were crazy top secret. Fortunately, Quantum Leap wasn't as bad as that, but yeah.
When you're on a set like that, where you have such a lockdown and you can only see bits and pieces, even of your own part, and to not be able to put it into the context of the entire project, is that a different feeling on that set? I know the job is the job. You do your lines and you do your best as an actor to act and react with the people around you. But does it affect the overall feeling of a shoot? Does it feel like a more closed sort of insular experience as opposed to everything we've heard about Quantum Leap? This is why I'm asking, is that it's such an inviting set, and that from top to bottom, everybody's always so, open and friendly. And I'm just wondering if there's a different dynamic when you have those kinds of constraints.
Definitely. And it's anytime you're on a set, number one on the call sheet sets the tone for the whole show. So, to answer your question, twofold. There's really when you only know what you're doing. I personally think it kind of limits you as an actor because you don't have the breadth of what's happening. So you discover what's happening the next time, and you always go, oh, shoot, if I had known this was going to happen, I would have played it a little more this way. I would have done a little more that. Which is always a challenge. So I really prefer to have much more information up front, which is like Quantum Leap. Once they'd locked the script, it was like ours to explore the script. You find so much more information about, who you are, what the town's like, how long you've been there, your whole backstory that you have to, build some of it on your own, but so much is there when they provide all that information. And one of the things like Ray, who's number one on our call sheet, was freaking phenomenal. I mean, again, like I gave you that example with Jonathan Demme earlier, that was actually both Ray and Silas coming on. I mean, they were two of the most inviting, friendly people. I mean, Ray's there, jumping in, hey, I'm so glad you could be part of this, and then we had, conversations about, just Quantum Leap and what it meant, to us and to other people. And of course, I'm sure he gets asked this everybody on the show, including me, is Scott Bakula coming on the show? And he's like, I don't know. And I read this fan theory that said that Scott had leaped into Ray, and that Ray was actually, doing, so Scott's double leaped into that. So really, Ray's is Scott. Yeah, I know. Which I again, like I say, I hope Scott does make it. But I was talking with Ray, and he's just super friendly, super great guy. I mean, and he's a wonderful actor, and I think he really does bring that sense of what I remember of Quantum Leap to this. He's funny, he's serious, he has that kind of, tongue-in-cheek, but with that certain, seriousness that's happening to him. So, I mean, I love the new show, and he's phenomenal and welcoming. And Silas, I mean, even Silas again, it's interesting when I think back to Jonathan Demme, because Silas, when I was eating lunch, he comes over and sits down next to me on the bench. We're in this big Western town. And then we just start talking, and he's telling me how much he loves what I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, and I say to him, I go, yeah, it'd be great if you guys can like come back and, another episode, maybe like, an hour before you did now. And he's like, that's a great idea, and then he calls to somebody, goes, is it possible to come back at a different episode and have Ted still be alive? So they have some, I'm sure he was just humoring me, but, let me put that out there. And I said this to Ray too, before I leave. I mean, buddy, just come back another episode, but like, a day sooner, that's all I'm asking, a day sooner. It's a whole different world. You're saving not only the town, but me.
You're thinking like a science fiction writer now.
I know, yeah. Story by.
Well, this is a whole different world to the original series. I mean, there's story arcs and connections. So hey, you never know. This is the perfect opportunity for a prequel of some sort.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, why not? You talked a bit about the atmosphere on set and how welcoming Ray and the director were. Silas. Were you on set for the whole shoot, or were you just on there
I was only on there just for the teaser piece. So those first what, 15 pages or whatever it is. Yeah. So I wasn't there for the end, but I will have to say this, that and I wrote his name down, Jim Cody. Have you guys interviewed him? He played the. I'll tell you the great thing about Jim. He plays like the old crazy man that's in that beginning. Yeah, he used to be in those Pace Picante commercials where it's like, they're eating Pace Picante and they're like, "This is made in New York City." So that was I had to ask him a billion questions about that, because I actually did a Pace Picante commercial, and I'm like, but he did it back in the heyday, and that was like one of those most iconic commercials. So.
So what was it like being on the set? Did you get to see any of the other main cast, or was it just mainly Raymond and Caitlin that you were interacting with?
Yeah, it was mainly those two. So everything in my world was, all the stuff that happens later on wasn't part of my world. So yeah, it was mainly Ray actually, and William.
It's funny what you said earlier, that you were only in the teaser, and what's so different about the new iteration of Quantum Leap is the teaser used to just be the 12 seconds before the oh boy, and basically you're in the teaser, which is as long or even longer than a lot of first acts these days.
Yeah, yeah, I know, it's true. Yeah, they do have a different structure to it. Yeah, it's funny because I actually rewatched my favorite episode not too long ago of the original, which was that I don't remember the name of it, but it's the one where Scott goes back to Vietnam.
Yeah, it's called The Leap Home Part 2 Vietnam.
Is that, well, there we go. It was and watching that, the heart in that is reminded me of why this show got rebooted. It's because there's so much, I remember when he sang that song, Imagine, it's like, and even seeing it again, it brought a tear to my eye, because there's so much heart in that. And I really do think that that's what the new show is bringing also. And I really think, as we start exploring and seeing what's going to happen with the new Quantum Leap, I really think there's going to be a whole new generation coming in. Because again, I love Ray in this role. I really, really do. And I wish there was somebody I didn't like, so I had some dirt for you, but
it's a shame.
Those
are always fun stories. We never seem to get them. Everyone just seems to love each other. So are you following the show as it airs at the moment?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So did you know about the ending of Salvation or Bust with the reveal of the other Leaper?
Yeah, because I had the
so that was actually even that wasn't cut out from your script.
Yeah, no. They're very and unlike a lot of other shows, they're very, very open to what is happening in your episode and in your world. So which I think is just beneficial to everybody. So yeah, I knew.
I know that we've been going for about a half an hour, but I had one other question, because you've been working for so long in so many different kinds of projects, and some amazingly fun seeming projects to me. A little film called Raptor, and maybe some other giant creature films. What is it like working on a set where everything's going to be done in post, and you have to react to what might be over there? I don't. I have to think that's a completely different acting experience too.
It's actually pretty fun, and I'll tell you, I love that whole imagination world. But I will tell you, when I stopped doing monster movies a while back, I was in Hawaii. I was shooting this, we were in Hawaii for a month, and it was great and wonderful. And it's a whole other experience that I could tell you about. That was just some amazing things that happened. But I remember being with, I think it was Michael Pare and Michelle Borth, I think might have been in that. And we were running from some monster. And I remember turning around and I said, and I don't remember what the words were, but I said this. And as soon as they cut, I just turned around to both of them. I go, I think I've said these exact same lines to just a different monster at least like 5 or 6 times. I go, I got to stop doing these monster movies.
That's the moment.
Hilarious.
So, with that in mind, have you got any other projects coming up that you want to share with us? I'm assuming not a return to monster movies.
No, it's not a monster movie. No, actually, I'm working
else?
on my wife, who is Priscilla Barnes. You probably know her best from Three's Company. She was also in Jane the Virgin, a bajillion other things. She and I are working on a play with our director and acting coach, John Markland. So it's called Honeysuckle Graveyard, and we're actually in the pre-works of it. He's been writing this script, and we've been working with him along with two other actors, Danny Keaton and Chris Dietrich. And it's a four-hander, it's four people. And so John is, we're working with him and developing this script that we're eventually going to be putting up. We're talking about maybe December or January putting this up here in Los Angeles. So it's called Honeysuckle Graveyard.
Great, something for locals.
That's a great title.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And everything else is just a waiting game.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really enlightening and fun chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time, Ted, and best of luck with the play.
Thanks, guys. I had a great time.
And we're back. That was Ted Monte. That's pretty cool. I like that we have a lot of interviews from Salvation or Bust and more to come. So that's pretty cool. I like hearing everybody's perspective on filming that episode. I have to talk about this. I have to admit something. I'm a cinephile, but a lot of that interview was about The Godfather, and I have yet to see any Godfather movie, and I'm not sure why. So it was weird.
I've never seen The Godfather either.
Only the first one is worth it.
The way he and Chris were talking about it, I think I might have to check it out. So, all right, back to Oh Ye. What? Yeah, is it? Okay, back to O Ye of Little Faith, and Thou Shalt Not. Demons and stuff. Allison, what did you think? What did you think about the religious aspects of this? Allison, what did you think about the religious aspects of this episode and how they dealt with it? I know different religion was different back. What was that? 100 years ago, almost now, 90 in this episode. 80.
Gosh, yeah, it would be almost 100 years ago, huh?
Yeah. So what was your take on that? I've never seen The Exorcist, another movie. I don't know why I haven't seen it. I might have saw it as a kid in the theater, but I don't remember it. But I know the gist from this episode anyway. What did you think about the supernatural religious aspects of this episode?
Well, I mean, it feels like they were leaning away from either of those things because this version of Quantum Leap is very secular. I've noticed, it kind of feels like it was mostly going for scientific, and they didn't really leave it open to interpretation. They did show Daisy's faith and her forgiving her mom, and like she said that Ben appeared to her as an angel, and so they had like I guess a positive depiction of religion there, but I'm not sure they're really leaving it open. Them saying like that Sam believed that God was leaping him around, it kind of seemed a little hand wavy. So I don't know. I mean, I think it was fine. I think like they're just going away from some of the more overt religious aspects of the original show.
Juan?
I like the hand wavy. I like that. So personally, I've always been of the mind that God was the one who was leaping Sam. And so a little bit of the affirmation, if that's what that was, from Ian was something that I was actually a big fan of. Speaking just of religion, my favorite scene, I don't know if this is where this conversation is going, but my favorite scene in this episode was probably when Ben was talking to himself, but kind of talking through Father, and watching both
cool.
the mirror. Oh, it was so cool. I mean, being able to see what it like it looked like the Father was having the conversation with him rather than Ben just talking to himself like we normally would get. It seemed like a really cool and different scene than we would get normally. But I do agree. It kind of you got the religion overtones a little bit, and then they tried to squash that down with like, Ben, I'm a man of science. I can't believe this stuff. So I think it's going away from that as well.
I don't mind Ben not being a man of faith, but having to question some of his beliefs. Should he be like considering things outside of his beliefs to try and get this leap done? So I think there's something interesting there. I think just the fact that the show didn't really leave it open to interpretation seemed different than they would have done in the original one.
All right. Well, it's interesting too because they originally described Ben in the character notes that he would be a man of faith, and yet it seems that they've changed their minds on this. I'm not opposed to them changing their mind. I personally think that a leaper probably shouldn't be overly religious, just because a leaper would understand that, you know, the leaper's the one that will eventually do the actions which cause the effects, not relying on some external force to do so. That's not to say that in a fictional show that, you know, they couldn't create some sort of a being that does that. I'm just saying that I'm glad that in this case the leaper would be the one that would consider themselves to be in charge of the leap and take control.
I think no matter how it goes, the leaper should be able to question either way. Like if he was a man of faith, he should be able to take into account that maybe something could be proven scientifically. And I think Ben should be open to it being supernatural if that's just kind of the way it happens to be.
Yeah, well, they had they had like some lines that seemed to be saying like, you don't understand something until you understand something. So him saying, I don't believe in possession, it's like, well, you're possessing that guy right now. Sometimes these things kind of intertwine.
Right.
You know, so, and I think like that was I keep going back to the original show, but I feel like Sam would also go over what logistically how something would work. Like he wouldn't just be automatically like there's some higher power at work, there's some supernatural thing going on, and they did a really great blending of both the science versus supernatural type thing, which was really interesting. Sometimes you got like a little goofy when you got into vampires existing, but they would have sometimes some very intriguing, like sometimes there's just some things outside of your understanding. Sometimes that's just the way it is. And you could explain anything that way, you know, to be like, well, this doesn't seem very sciencey. It kind of seems like magic. Well, sometimes that's just the way it is.
I really loved the depiction of the two rational thinkers, the two scientists trying to figure out what was going on. I like their discussion talking about, you know, science, and part of science is understanding that you don't understand everything. So you have to be open to new data and try to figure it out and use the process of science to go through it. And for that like middle section of the episode when the doctor was tagging along with Ben and they were trying to figure it out, to me, it was like half an Agatha Christie murder mystery, and the other half was like a Doctor Who episode. And I was just really digging the groove, and I was like, oh, I wish this doctor was like the companion that was going to be with Ben for a little while or something. That would be cool, or if he popped up again. But I really liked the take that they had on everything, because I think, is Ben an atheist? Probably, I'm guessing, from...
He's probably open to it.
He saw some evidence,
but otherwise,
right. So maybe,
yeah, most likely atheist.
Yeah, because you see in the episode, he like wavers at points, depending on like further in the episode before he actually realizes that it's the poison. You see him like waver in certain moments. You know, he holds the cross in front of him when he sees, you know, the demon.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
So does the doctor.
I guess what they were encountering was so powerful. They were like, well, it can't hurt, you know. This is what I saw in the movie, so it might work. Let's. I'm here. I'm doing this, so you know. There's the demon. Here's a cross, you know.
I mean, there is something very funny about a character who is not religious having to perform an exorcism, having to pretend to be this priest. And like they had like scenes where he's talking to the doctor and he's just like, I was taught you had to question all the variables and you had to like do all this and very logically in school. And then he's just like, well, you learned that at the Vatican? Like, yes. Yes, I did.
That was great.
And I did like the scene where he's talking to his reflection in the mirror, and that I feel like part of that was him hallucinating because he drank the gin by then, but it was like just subtle enough. At first you're like, is he just talking in the mirror? But then you notice like he's nodding and then Ben's not nodding, so it's like these things aren't adding up together. And it was a clever workaround too.
A little bit differently. I thought that maybe he was line merging with the guy that he leapt into, and maybe that's how he was essentially so well equipped to be able to perform this exorcism. Like, even just asking the demon to appear and then, telling it to leave and all that sort of stuff. I expect you probably still need some sort of training if you to know how to do that. So I think there's probably a good chance he was picking up like some of the knowledge of the Lee P as well. And that scene with the mirror, I thought maybe he was trying to have some sort of a dialogue with the person that he leapt into to try and figure out, well, what do we actually do?
I mean, according to this episode, there's only 3 simple steps to an exorcism. you just say like, hey, demon, come on out. And then you have a battle. And then you're like, I win or I lose. And they're like, this is how it works. And then, I don't know. It seemed like a very simple explanation for that. Yeah, you have a holy battle. And then one of you wins and one of you loses. So I don't know how much training you need for that. Yeah. Apparently the first guy didn't have much training because he didn't get past the first phase. I don't know what happened with that first exorcist. He kind of sucked.
He didn't know all 3 steps. He was new. He only knew 2 of the steps and it wasn't working because he did them out of order. So I really
thought maybe he died because they were so vague about it. They're like, he didn't get past the first step. He didn't have the same skills as you. I'm like, why would he just run? Did they kill him? Like he was going to know too much or what was going on?
I'm thinking Percival bribed him. Percival probably bribed him. That was my thought.
Yeah.
I really like
he died as well.
You thought he died?
Okay, it's not just me then.
Yeah, no.
I totally missed it. It went right over
They're
my
gonna open the
patios.
cupboard and then his body falls out and they're like, oh man.
Bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
Was that the first time they had a leaper talking to a leapy in the mirror? I think
it was.
It's amazing after
like
so
Sam
many
might have
episodes.
said some things to like a reflection, but not speaking to them. Which I think was, I would have hoped, I hope they do more stuff like that in the future. I don't know if I necessarily want it to be a regular feature, but I kind of like that, especially because we don't have a waiting room this time around. So it'd be kind of nice to maybe get the feel a little more for the people that Ben's leaped into. And I feel like in this episode, it was nice workaround for him not having Addison around to have someone to bounce off of. And that was the same thing when he has the dream sequence.
Yeah, I thought I was getting a look into just the way he was thinking. So to me, it seemed a little bit more metaphorical than it did like it was actually happening. And so I just assumed he was just talking to himself if you just ran into the restroom. But I agree. I thought it was one of the cooler highlights of this episode.
It being a horror episode, I expected the whole time for Ben to walk away and the reflection still be there. But that didn't happen. That cool.
I did wish that they'd gone a little farther with some of the the mind bending type stuff. I do think like it seemed like it was coming to a crescendo and then it would like pull back and then it would start doing more and then it would pull back, and it would have been cool if it was just slowly unraveling until you get this big kind of exorcism hallucination going on and then something clicks about what's really going on.
Yep. I don't know if anybody noticed this or if it was just me, but anytime they went to the project scenes, anytime we saw Ian, the camera person would kind of pan a certain way and show Ian's face. It almost seemed like, I think what Allison is getting at is of more of a mind bender. I almost thought Ian was going to be like the owl devil kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it just seemed kind of spooky, but nothing ever really happened over there. But that's kind of the way I thought it was going to go, and then it just never developed from there.
The whole like cat ear thing and all that with Ian, it's just a reference to Sandman.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I kind of groaned at the Meowgencies thing, because like I don't mind if they have references to like previous projects in there. It just it has to make sense with what you're watching, and it felt like it was just there for the reference. So it was a little cringy, but I mean it was okay.
What's the reference, Allison?
Sandman, Ian's cat ears. In Sandman, Mason Alexander Park plays Desire, and as part of that role, they wear these cat ears, and that's why they have
phenomenal. If you haven't seen Sandman, it's so good.
Yeah, Sandman's great.
So good.
And it just got renewed for season 2. So.
Yep.
Congrats, Mason.
Great. I think in this episode, they were kind of playing on our expectations of having watched the original Quantum Leap Halloween episode and expecting someone to be a devil like Deval was or something. What I saw in this episode was towards the beginning of the episode, Addison seemed different, and she seemed like she was just playing a heightened personality of her and maybe a mischievous personality of her, which gave me the impression that, maybe she's not her. Maybe she's going to be playing the Deval role, or but then nothing ever came of that. But she seemed, it was weird because she seemed more like she did in Ben's fantasy than she would in real life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think she was being kind of playful, and I'm not sure if they were trying to play up those expectations. They might have been. I feel like the whole reveal with Janice was them trying to do that similar reveal. The devil was a secret Calavici kind of thing. And I don't know. I just wish that at the beginning it had looked less demonic and more up for interpretation. If it had looked more like it could have feasibly been something glitchy, I would have actually really liked that. I would have been like, wow, okay, cool. Because like it does look kind of creepy, and then there is some sort of explanation, but it's so blatantly a demon face. It just goes beyond my suspension of disbelief.
I don't like snarls at him or something.
Yeah, it snarls, and like there's clearly a disfigured face, red eyes, nasty teeth, and goes. Rah! And even like the description like says like a wraith comes out, and then like I don't know why she would appear inside her. That seems like an odd coincidence to do that, and then slide up. It's not something that you would automatically go. In retrospect, yes, this is what was happening. You watch it back and you go, this is still confusing. And I think a lot of people didn't interpret that way. I think there's a lot of people going, why did they see that? And not, oh, that was Janice.
I think it would have been a lot better if it was just a black cloud of smoke, like a figure or something, like you were saying. But making it specifically a demon, it just doesn't make sense. So I don't know who would have fixed that. Would that be the director? Would that be the special effects supervisor? Would it just be the whole team having too much fun and maybe having logic thrown out the window and just to scare people for Halloween maybe? But I think they could have found a happy middle.
Yeah, the way that it was seen through the rest of the episode, like when Ben is, there's one time where you see the shadow behind him and he doesn't look behind him. You just see the shadow and then it like moves away, and it is exactly that, a shadow. I think that worked fine. If they had done something like that in the initial reveal, it would have been fine. I don't know why a glitch would make you kind of smoky, but what?
Ben had actually drunk some of the devil's snare. Then they could get into the more creepy sort of version of the shadow. They shouldn't have started. Because then.
Yeah. Because anything after that is. Yeah, anything after that you can say is just like kind of a mix of both, because I feel like there are some times where he's seeing the shadow and it wasn't Janice, it's just he remembered seeing that and then was hallucinating that, like when she's coming out of the closet. I think that was kind of a mix of both. But I did find it especially weird that he saw that before he drank the gin. They even show him refusing to drink the gin. It's not till about 17 minutes in that he does this. And at no point does he go, I was drugged, but wait, what was that at the beginning? And if he'd questioned that, I would have felt a little better about it, but it seemed like he was incurious about what he saw at the beginning.
Like a small flashback or something.
Yeah. And then he could have been like, was it a demon? Was it not? And then we're like, oh, I see they're doing like the old show where it's like, it could be both. Yeah. And then you realize, it was Janice or whatever.
Sorry. Who's not nearly as experienced with Quantum Leap as you guys. I haven't seen any of the original series, and I've seen part of the new series. Yeah.
I think you saw the first 3 up to the boxing episode, and then this one.
And then this one, yeah.
Actually, this one would be a good one to follow the boxing one, because the stuff with I can't remember the guy's name, the other leaper, that wasn't seen
Leaper X
until after that episode. But also
Martinez.
that episode ended with
Martinez.
Martinez, thank you.
Yeah.
But also the boxing episode ended with Janice making the stuff to communicate with.
Yeah.
So this one actually might have been a good continuation. I mean, it doesn't matter. The order's fine.
Yeah.
But I just thought this was a good one. But what were you wanting to ask about that one, though?
Yeah, so I was curious if there's so he was in a dream sequence of some sort, and I was curious as to why, if there's any explanation from past episodes as why something like this happens. That in that it revealed that the soup that the girl was eating, her name slipped my mind, that the girl was eating, and then the gin that he drank is making him hallucinate. Yeah, and does anyone have any input on why that would make sense as to why that would show to him?
I mean, I think anything that happened in the dream is him working it out in his head. I don't think it's like there was some influence telling him what was going on outside of himself. I think that was just them showing an interpretation of how he's figuring this out.
So he's done.
That's how I interpret it.
He hasn't inner monologued, I don't think, as much as he did in this episode, but you do see him trying to remember things, going back to him and Addison sleeping in bed and waking up and getting breakfast, and so you do see kind of small glimpses of that in the past episodes. I think this is the most prolonged time we've seen him inner monologue, but I think it, like Allison said, I think it's just him Sherlock Holmesing it out and just trying to figure out what's going on.
I thought that was a cool way to do it, like that you got to see them all sitting at the table, and then it was him inner monologuing with himself, but it was a way to do it without having characters just standing around talking about it, so it changed it up a little bit, and it was interesting visuals, I thought.
It reminded me of Sherlock, when Sherlock was trying to figure out who done it. It was very that, especially with the characters just being still like that. It was reminiscent of that for me. I really liked the dream sequence, or whatever we're calling it, just because they got to kiss, even though it's not really them kissing, so they can get away with it. And you kind of get that, ooh, they're kissing, but without the satisfaction of them really kissing. Kind of, I think the X-Files played with that a few times too.
It's for the GIFs, for the fan videos.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I like that.
I also got feelings of mirror image from that scene as well, because it's kind of implied that the thing that was, personified as Addison is actually also Ben, there to help him try and figure things out.
He's making out with himself. He's like, at last.
I'm sure
No, I get it though.
Sitting around the table were all the characters that could have been. Did anybody figure out who done it way before the end of the episode? My first thought was always the maid. For some reason, I thought it was the maid, because I had pretty much ruled everybody out, unless it was the whole Murder on the Orient Express ending, which it kind of was in a way, because everybody that was ruled out for one reason or another was part of a team that did it eventually. But who did you think did it as you were watching the episode? Because I'd say who done it, so it's kind of like trying to figure it out.
So I called Percival. I did not see Lola. I didn't see her attachment at all to it. But I did see the Percival twist coming. As soon as he mentioned Lola, I did the same thing as Ben did, and I was like, what? Like, it was just a weird second take.
Allison, who did you think did it while you were watching the episode?
Honestly, I don't think I was theorizing anyone in particular. Maybe I should have been. I don't know. I was kind of interested in the creepy Halloween vibes. I didn't really give much thought as to who did it. I did think the maid sounded kind of suspicious when she's like, the lines are all cut. It was the demon. But yeah, I don't know if I really gave it much thought. I probably should have, but I was just focused on other stuff.
I caught on to the soup thing pretty early on. Not as early on as the gin, but the soup thing, and she was the one serving the soup. So that's why I think I assumed it was the maid.
Right. I definitely thought that there was, like, he was under some sort of influence, because the way Ben was acting, it's like, okay, there's something, like either some sort of gas leak or some sort of thing affecting them, because, yeah.
My thought process was...
Well, I picked
Percival? Okay. That was the obvious one, I think, because you would think a father wouldn't kill their daughter, a mother wouldn't kill their daughter, so it's got to be, and the doctor just got there because of what was happening, so it had to be either the maid or the uncle, I was thinking. So, and the whole Lola turn shocked me, and we spoke to Elyse Levesque before we saw the screener, because the screener was kind of late coming out, later than normal for us to get it. So we spoke to her before we knew she had done it, so we didn't talk about that during the interview, but that's coming up later. But I was shocked because I just didn't see that coming at all. But as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Well, what mother would do that to their daughter, though? I really thought that was a very poor thing to write into the episode. And if they really wanted that love angle, then it should have been Percival with the maid, and the two of them coming up with it together, so that they could run off together with the money.
I didn't take it as a love angle.
But a very important angle. Well, it was. They were in love, and they decided they were going to kill the daughter, take the money, and run off together.
I think she was just manipulating him. I don't think I don't think she was in love with him. I think she was just trying to get him to do her bidding.
Yeah, I think Percival was in love with her, but Lola was just using Percival. But I would have to disagree with the criticizing the writing. I think upon repeated watchings of this episode, I think there was a lot of good foreshadowing and setups and payoffs. When you go and rewatch the episode and everything that's going on, it really is giving you all the clues you need along the way. And yet I didn't pick up on the clues watching the episode the first time. So I was still surprised at the ending, but when you rewatch the episode, it's all right there. So I think it was really well written. I really do. This was written by Margarita Matthews. I think she did a really good job. This is her first episode of Quantum Leap, as far as I know.
Well, you could still have all those clues and not have it be a mother deciding she's going to kill her kid. I still think you could have all those clues and have it be the maid who's in cahoots with.
You just thought it was too cruel. It was a step too far for you.
It really.
I mean, it's murder either way, right?
Yeah, I think you're thinking
it is, but I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that a mother would want to do.
Oh, you don't believe a mother would want it? Oh,
the torturing. That they've essentially tortured this girl for a few weeks too.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me of, this wasn't the exact situation, but how do you pronounce it? Munchausen by proxy syndrome?
By proxy, yeah. Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah, where it's a thing where parents or caregivers slowly poison or injure the person that they're taking care of, either to get attention or sympathy or whatever. Would this fall under that? Because the ultimate goal was to murder her.
Right. I don't think it would, because it wasn't for the attention, because she was trying not to get caught. I think she was just a sociopath and didn't care about her money whatsoever. Yeah. Only cared about herself.
Yeah,
an actress.
I mean, I do think she was a cruel character, but I think they added a little bit of nuance to it, because they talked about how she had her so young. She was stuck in this marriage and in this life that she didn't want. She didn't feel like she had any agency in her situation. So she made the wrong decision, but you could see maybe the beginnings of how she got to that point. So I feel like there was at least some nuance to the character, even though she was a cruel person. I really liked the acting from Elyse Levesque at the end when she's talking about why she did what she did.
I absolutely love that they gave her character that, because you understood where she was coming from and why she did what she did. And that was a different time, over 100 years ago or 100 years ago, when women in particular didn't have agency over themselves. So that might be another aspect to the script that they were writing in. And because it seems impossible for a mother to do that to their child, but if they built up this resentment from the situation that they were put in and had no way out of it for that many years, 18 years, and just the rage and anger built up over that time of what could have been, and this is my life, you could see where it could turn someone who had mental problems into a killer. And I just thought it was well written, that whole story arc, and Elyse Levesque did really good with that, I think. But the writing, I love the writing of this episode. The writing of this episode and the boxing episode are my two favorite written episodes so far.
Yeah, I think it was noticeable that it was not part of the main screenwriting staff that they have. This was someone who hadn't written for it before. Maybe that's why it felt a little more classic flavored for this particular episode, or maybe they were just trying something different and it was like a nice refresh. But that was pretty cool.
I guess I watch a lot of horror stuff, so didn't seem at all out of place for a Halloween episode.
No, it didn't seem out of place. It just seemed different from what we've been seeing in Quantum Leap. I just felt like if for this series anyway. There were some things that did not make sense in the writing, and I don't think, I don't want to be ragging on the screenwriter, but there were some questions I had, like who called the doctor? Because he says they were refusing treatment for her, and he didn't like that they were refusing treatment. He thought she should be treated. Who called her? Or who called him, I mean? Because, this could unravel their entire plan if he figured out that she was poisoned. And clearly they didn't.
I thought it must have been the maid.
Can the maid do that? Can the maid call the doctor for this family? Is that overstepping her bounds? Or especially because they could have at any point said, hey, get out of here, we don't want you treating her, like he said that they were doing, but they didn't at any point.
Well, she put the rotting fish in the room, obviously against the wishes of her masters, so right. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that she'd realise, she needs help and would call the doctor. I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility.
But no one said that, though. No one seemed off-put by him being there at all, which was weird if that was their plan to poison her and then pin everything on her.
The matriarch, what was her name? The woman who ended up dead on Tessa. Yeah, Aunt Tessa, was it, or something like that? I think it might have been her. That could have been.
Called it, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, and then it could have been the first priest. He probably said, "Oh, hell no," priest? And left, and then called the cops and called the doctor.
Hell no!
Because who called the doctor?
It's actually been in a time loop. He keeps coming back to this. He's like, "Oh, hell no," and he leaves, and then the next one comes in. And he doesn't remember it, though. That's what he kept leaping back for. That's what happened. That's why he left. He came back home, and he's like, "Damn it! I knew I had to do something," and he keeps forgetting every time.
Mm-hmm. That was crazy. All right. Oh, Ye of Little Faith is a great episode. But remember that episode, Salvation or Bust? It's the episode that just keeps on giving. We have the actor who played the guy who fixed up Ben's shoulder with aloe. His name is Eddie Park. He's a cool guy. We got to talk to him. Me and Matt got to talk to him, and it turns out he watches the show. So we actually met somebody who watches this show. That surprised me because I thought me and Matt were the only ones that watch the show. But it turns out Matt doesn't watch
the after show?
The after show.
He watches the after show? Oh, that's cool.
So he's really cool. He was excited to be on.
If you're watching now, Eddie, hi.
Yeah. Eddie is such a cool guy. So let's go to that Eddie interview right now. Eddie the cool guy. Eddie Park.
Stings. What is that?
Ancient Chinese secret. Kidding, it's just aloe.
bullet left a nasty burn, but that's just a grace. So heal it right up.
Hello and welcome to the Quantum Leap podcast. I'm Albie. I'm here with Matt Dale. And our special guest today is from the episode of Quantum Leap, Salvation or Bust. He played Ming, the town's doctor. This is Eddie Park. Hi, Eddie. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing awesome. Great to be here. Big fan of the show.
Thank you so much for being on Quantum Leap podcast. I'm excited to talk to you because Salvation or Bust, I really enjoyed the Leap part of that, the Western part of that. And I want to talk about Quantum Leap, of course, and get to your experience on there. But I want to find out a little bit more about you first. Like, how did you get into acting? How did you get the bug? What were some of your first jobs? Can you walk us through that?
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you. And also I want to be on the show. I've been catching up and just having a great time reliving memories.
Awesome.
So I first got into acting. I used to be this extremely shy kid with like a little stutter, and I think elementary school, my dad and my parents were just kind of like forcing me into stuff. You know, they're like, "Oh, try t-ball, try this, try soccer, try piano." And then, as a shy kid, I'm like, "Oh, this sucks." And then finally, my dad was like, "Hey, you should try for the school play." And out of all things, I was like, "What?" And I tried out, wasn't expecting much, and it was a 4th grade play, so it wasn't a huge deal. And then I got Danny Zuko because the musical was Grease.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, whoa, as like a little 4th grader, I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And then I did the performance, and I remember that from that moment on, when I was singing my song, and I'm like, my legs are shaking, out in the audience, that's how I basically became the person I am today. Sounds cliche, but... Yeah, and then when I act, my stutter kind of went away, and as I became more open, and I didn't get into acting, so maybe about middle school, and then I was taking classes, didn't get too many jobs, but from late middle school to mid-high school, I would get small things. One of my first jobs was with Ken Jeong for his show on ABC, and then one of my later ones was Criminal Minds. The last season, so that was a big one for me. Got to play a traumatized teenager whose dad gets murdered, and a few other ones. And this one is the biggest deal for me. I had the most fun with Quantum Leap. Yeah.
Have you done much else in terms of musical theatre? You said you started off with Grease. Was there anything else, even on an amateur level, that you were doing on that kind of side? I
got more into musical theatre in high school, and then I would do some plays like old-fashioned plays, Our Town, Dining Room, and the musicals were more like Music Man. What else did we do? We did Beauty and the Beast, Mamma Mia, and that was the most fun. And then we were going to do Chicago. I was playing Billy from the lead, and then COVID happened, so that's when all theaters went, shut down. But, on a TV, bigger and better things, so.
Yeah, Billy Flynn, that's a great part. Were you able to hit that high note in Grease? What was it, Summer Nights? Is that the song?
Oh, yeah, that was like pre-puberty Eddie, so, I was hitting all those notes for sure. So.
Cool.
It was like butter.
What's it like for a young actor to go from like school plays to being on Criminal Minds? I mean, that's a huge step. Was it like a lot of nerves and big responsibility to take on?
I've been performing so much throughout my childhood that it kind of like numbed me to being nervous, I guess. And especially with this kind of fun role, it's like a ragtag group of, cowboys from the Old West, saving the town, it was just like playing every day. So, I don't think it was too much of a leap. Sorry, no pun intended. I don't know why I made that joke, but it wasn't that big of a leap. But yeah, doing small projects and then finally something this fun, filming in the Universal backlot. Wow. Seeing, the Universal tram that I used to ride when I was a kid, people waving, and I'm just like, yeah.
You're on the other side now. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. How did you get involved with Quantum Leap? What was the process of going from hearing about the part to being on set?
So my manager, Miss Mara, she emailed me, that's all managers do. And then I was like, oh, Quantum Leap, okay, Ming. And my dad, he saw the email. He was like, do you know how big of a deal this is? Like, they're bringing back Quantum Leap in episode 5. And I'm like, yeah, because, I was before my time, and then I did my research. I'm like, whoa, this is a huge deal. And just reading the script and seeing, Chinese Americans being represented in this time, I was like, wow. So I auditioned, and I had about 4 auditions that day because I was actually in Korea on vacation, taking care of family. Cool. So I just had to get these auditions out, and then this one felt good. Like, it felt, it was a very homey scene. It was the one where I'm in the apothecary taking care of Mr. Raymond. And I think like 2 weeks later, I only sent one self-tape, and I got booked to the role, and I was extremely blessed. And when I got to the U.S. again, 1 week after I arrived, back to work. Awesome.
Is that normal for you at the moment? You mentioned you're doing kind of 4, I guess they were all self-tapes, 4 auditions back to back. That must be quite challenging, just getting yourself from one character to the next. Is that a normal day for you now, or was it just everything happened to come at once? You were just waiting for months, and all the auditions hit at the same time.
I know, because I was in Korea, so I was like, okay, I have to find an English speaker that could, read with me. And luckily, my cousin was there.
Right.
We were really close. And one was, I was a Korean American kid in the 90s. I had to cry a lot. One was, this other one, just, I was just like a teen, and then a cowboy. Yeah, it was just, the common ground was Asian teen. So that, that helped.
One thing I noticed while watching Salvation or Bust, and your part in particular, talking about in the apothecary and putting aloe on Raymond Lee, was like, you look young, but I assumed you were like a much older actor because you just had this confidence about you in that scene. Your character did anyway. How does someone as young as yourself carry yourself that, let's say, mature?
Number one is the rest of the cast and crew, honestly. It's just, how do they make you feel welcome, and how are they collaborating with you? Because I was the youngest person on set, I believe. And Miss Natalia, who plays Valentina, she is playing someone younger than me, but she is a few years older than me. And, everyone looks so young. I was so surprised. Everyone, the guest stars, they look so young, but they're saying that they have like children and that they're married. I'm like, what? I was like, wow. But they were talking to me as if I was, I was their age.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there wasn't a lot of burden. I just, we're just all joking around a lot. So yeah, I like to think of myself as mature, but definitely. And I guess in terms of character, Ming, he's, I think he's 16 or 17. He's carrying on the burden of, taking care of his town. And McDonough and his gang, they may have been popping in or out, and other outlaws. So I guess that Ming's, the weight that he carries on his shoulders must be huge. Medicine wasn't huge back then, of course. And yeah, I just feel like he has, a teenage boy must have matured. So I was like, okay, I have to take on that responsibility. I have to, and his relationship with his father. He has to take care of his father.
Speaking of your father on the show, we got the pleasure, Matt and I, to speak to Harry Yee, and he spoke very highly of you, even when we weren't recording. And he explained to us a little bit about preparing for that scene. Can you tell us your memories of preparing for that scene and filming that scene?
Yeah, I first met Harry. I was getting my makeup done in the trailer, and I was walking in. I see Harry in the back. He's not very upset. And he's like, my son! And I'm like, oh, what's up? And yeah, because we're both Korean, and he's partially Korean, and then we kind of like bonded over that. And so yeah, and I just got a very first strong impression when I first met him. I was like, this is gonna be awesome. And when I got back to my trailer, he mentioned how he knocked on my door, right? And he's like, you know what? Let's bond. Let's go to crafting. I'm like, hell yeah. And so we get on set. We're not even called yet, but we just wanted to sink in the Western, town. This is our first time on set. And we're just, we're eating our yo plays at crafting and eating our Doritos. And we're just chilling. And he just tells the most awesome stories, from being like a Broadway star to being like in like the early hip hop dance scene in New York, and his time all over the world and all these projects. Yeah. Awesome dude. Awesome. Very talented dude. For sure.
Harry had mentioned how important it was to have 3 different generations of Asian Americans represented on network television, and I think it's great when something like that happens and it's not even part of the story. That just the characters happen to be Asian American. Can you tell me a little bit about your feelings on representation on television and the opportunities that you're getting now?
Oh yeah. So first off, as you mentioned, the 3 generations that also Mr. Harry mentioned. It was crazy because it was like the teen and then like the adult and then like the older adult. The funny thing was that we were all theater kids. I did theater in high school and I'm still studying theater right now. Mr. Raymond Lee, he did theater in college and he made his own little touring group actually with his friends. He was telling me about that. And Harry, he was touring on Broadway, as you guys know. And there would just be like these times where like the 3 of us were just dancing off stage and like we're like joking around, making like musical, kind of moves, and we're singing. I remember one time when we were off in like the waiting room, we were just singing like Africa by Toto, just doing the harmonies. It was a great time. So it was just 3 theater kids basically, essentially, just each with their own experiences, just having a blast. In terms of representation, wow. As I mentioned earlier, Harry and I were chilling out on set, and one of the writers, Derek A. Hughes, he comes up to us and he introduces himself to us. We're like, oh, yeah. And we're just mentioning how much we love the script and, thank you for putting representation in for us. And Mr. Hughes, who is also Asian American, he just kind of explained to us that, it's not that, Hollywood nowadays, they're becoming more inclusive, right? But he explained to us that this was what it really was in the West. There were people, it was a diverse population. There were Chinese Americans, there were, Hispanic people, there were, of course, African Americans. And, back then, when Westerns were made in like the 60s and so on, it would just be purely Caucasian, and maybe, they would introduce like a Native American character, like a classic Native American character. But yeah, it was just awesome to finally see a true diverse cast that kind of represents the true Wild West of like what it would have been now. Yeah.
So what was Raymond Lee like?
Wow. There's a reason why he is the leading man. Let me tell you, because on screen, he has like this charisma, right? But when you see him in person, because like he is pretty much taller than me. So like I see him, he's like these wide shoulders. He has like these warm eyes. He has like these pearly white teeth, and he's like in like his cowboy. Like he looked awesome in that cowboy outfit, by the way, with like the blue and like the corduroy kind of vest. And when I saw him, he just projects this aura that like models have. Like they just. It's like, man, that's Raymond Lee. And I would catch him certain times, just like walking around, hitting like these high notes and riffs. And I'm like, did anyone else hear that? Because he would be like, no, like that was nothing. And he has this secret talent where he humbles himself by saying, oh, no, like I'm not that great of a singer, but I can find a harmony to anything. So I was like, wow. So there's a fun fact for you. Mr. Raymond Lee can harmonize to everything. And yeah, he's just an amazing, fun, warm guy. Just hopefully get to work with him again. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier this was filmed on the Universal backlot, and what was it like being part of a production like that? How was like the director, producers, the rest of the crew, just that whole 8-day shoot I think you had? What was that whole experience like for you?
So the two, I mean, everyone was amazing, but the 2 biggest figures to me were the director, Mr. Silas Howard, and the executive producer, Mrs. Deborah Pratt. Wow, they know how to like commit everything. Mr. Silas Howard, he's from the very first day, I wasn't too much involved. The first day was the bucket, the fire, and we were probably running, just getting just wet, everywhere, and people just lugging just 25 pounds of water over. And let me tell you, man, Mr. Howard, he's just he's just someone that you just want to like hang out with, because a lot of directors, they're at times they can seem kind of untouchable, you know what I mean? They can seem kind of intimidating, and you just want to like please the director, maybe have like a fun chat with them. But no, Mr. Howard, he was such a joy to work with, so nice, and everyone's just a goofball, and the fact that he was able to kind of create that environment, especially on like a cowboy set, if everyone's a goofball and you're on a cowboy set, like wow, that's room for a ton of jokes, a bunch of memories. And Miss Deborah Pratt, there was this one memory. We're all getting dinner, and there was a night shoot, and she's awesome. She wanted to have dinner with the guest cast. I was like, wow, like people are really putting time to meet, voice crack, meet, and just get to know and just spend time with the 99% of the cast that is there and that goes. So I really appreciated that. And she was telling me the story because she's been with Quantum Leap since the very first series, right? And as the first show was kind of wrapping, she was telling me how she actually tried to expand Quantum Leap, get a cartoon, get more merchandising, and have like a convention, just make everything huge, just expand Quantum Leap. And I guess the producers and the people back then were like, that's okay, yeah, like you can figure that out, just you that yourself and you'll pitch it to us. And she tried to get this meeting, and everyone, like the head could go, I don't remember too much about the details, but basically like everyone was like, okay, like we'll get working. And then when the big boss heard about, what she wanted to do, he was like, guys, why aren't we getting on this? And they were starting to, like they were getting the cartoon developed, and then that's when the show got discontinued. Well, yeah, which is a bummer, but no, yeah, you can tell that she loves the show, and she loves every second of it. And there's a reason why she's back. And just filming on the backlot with these people that want to spend time with you in a cowboy land, like what can get better than that? This isn't just a normal set crew and cast. This is, man, if I could like relive that, like I was so blessed and grateful. Like this whole environment that they created was like one in a million. Definitely. I'm not just saying that, like it was awesome. It was so cool.
I guess as far as guest starring roles go, usually you'd just be the one person showing up amongst a lot of people that are used to being there and used to working together. But in a show like Quantum Leap, you're surrounded by people that are all new. And you've talked a bit about how you bonded with Harry. Is there anything else you can share about how the guest cast, who were effectively all new for that 8 days and then all scattered afterwards, how you all came together and how you worked together?
Yeah, so I guess it kind of contrasts with the previous episodes because, there was the astronaut one and like the robbery one and the boxing one, and they would have like their own, little groups and stuff like that, right? But this one was different because it was like a team, it was people with different skill sets coming together, and that was kind of reflected in the cast because even though we didn't have too much time together, we definitely had scenes, like the town meeting, we're trying to figure out a plan, and Miss Caitlin Bassett's walking around saying, Ming's a chemist, and he does explosives, and old Joe, he's a, he used to be a hunter. But yeah, we got really attached to each other. There would just be times where, as I said before, they made me feel like I was, their age. We'd just be talking about like having kids, and we just got so close, just talking about like motorcycles and what else? Just so many crazy things. Shout out to Mr. Demetrius Butler. What a man. Like he's awesome just to talk with. And at the end of the shoot, they announce our wrap. All right, like these people, you're wrapped for the night. Everyone's cheering. And when we drive a van back to our dressing rooms to get undressed and go back home, there's this video clip that I have, and I'll let you know if you guys want to see it, but it's just us singing like a song. It was Black Hole, and everyone's just singing along, and everyone's like happy, and then Demetrius goes, "I love y'all," and everyone's like, "Oh, I love you too," and it was just kind of like a bittersweet moment. Yeah, everyone just got really close.
I'm really enjoying Quantum Leap, but I'm also, I think, almost more enjoying the behind-the-scenes stories of all the just the kindness and love and fun that everyone seems to be having on the set. It just makes the show that much better to hear that, because you don't always have that. Another thing I wanted to know about, there's this exciting scene at the end where the townspeople group together and fight off the big bad guy and stuff. What was it like filming that action sequence? I know you're up on the balcony, right, with Harry and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that day?
Yeah, so that day was dedicated to that whole montage, right? And we were joking around, instead of just putting like a theme, we should put like the A-Team theme, like dun 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 dun, and like, you know, we were joking around about that. So yeah, like everyone looked so badass during that part with Miss Yanni King like flicking the match. But I think Harry and I were the last part of that big sequence to get filmed, and we're running out of sunlight. And we hadn't practiced throwing like the bombs, because like they were like weighted, and Harry was talking about how he almost hit someone in the camera with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just one take. It was just a minute of us chucking these bombs down, not trying not to hit people, and I was like dodging shots. It was fun. And then you know, we were expecting to throw probably like 5 times more, but they're like, "We're good. I love that." So we're like, "Oh, nice."
Oh, awesome.
And as you mentioned, the last hurrah scene, they actually cut a few lines out. And I understand, because it kind of like, I guess, got in the way of like the pace, just kind of like the heroic hurrah. And Henry, played by Marquise Wilson, the character is eating, because I don't know if they showed the buffet, but there was a buffet at the bar, but they have more close-ups of that. And we're all fake eating. And Henry goes, you know, he goes, man, like, Wei, who's my father, who's the chef, like, have you ever thought about opening your own place? And then, you know, he can't talk, so I speak on his behalf. So I'm like, you know, like, my dad's been looking for a business partner, so I don't know, like, we'll see. And what's her name? Frankie. It's like, you know what? I mean, I'm your gal, and it's just like the sweet moment where it's like the first Chinese restaurant being established. And I thought that was a sweet moment, and unfortunately, didn't get to on screen. But
it's a shame.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear about that. We had no idea. I love that you mentioned that you guys were talking about A-Team while filming, because that was one thing that came across my mind while I was watching it, especially when Raymond as Ben says, "I love it when a plan comes together," because that's what they say at the end of every A-Team after all the townspeople group together to win the day or whatever. So that was awesome. Eddie, are there any other memories you can share with us about the time you had on Quantum Leap?
Yeah, for sure. There's Mr. Raymond Lee. He made me break character probably a dozen times. One being, I mean, obviously there was a little more leeway because the camera was behind me, so I could kind of like hide my laughter, but you might see like the audio might catch my breath going like, you know, those little sniffles, as well as, you know, like my body going up and down. But the part where he eats the wonton soup, he's like, "Oh yeah," like as like the later takes were like, you know, Ben's starving at this point. You know, he hasn't eaten since he first left, so he's really starving. So the next take, he's like slurping on the soup, just like it's like that, and like I'm just like trying not to break character, and he has like spinach going up and like wontons coming out of his mouth, and he's just going at it, and I'm just like, there's just one take where you couldn't even hear me talk because it was just all. But secondly, yeah, that was awesome. The second scene was at town meeting, and I have this one line where it goes, where Ben's talking about his plan, and I go, "What are you thinking?" And Ben does like this look. He's like, like, "I got a plan." And before they say cut, or right when they say cut, he's like, and I say, "What are you thinking?" And he goes, "We're gonna poop on them." And just like, it was like a stupid remark, and then everyone just like laughed. And he would say every single take, you know, he's a goofball. Love him.
Oh my goodness.
You know, the close-ups on me, I would just think about, you know, him saying, "We're gonna poop on him," and everyone's just looking at me on that last scene where I'm like, "What are you thinking?" And I'm biting my tongue as hard as I can, trying to get the shot in. And it just got too bullying at some point. And Raymond just like looking at me because it's just like the look that he does. He's like, he does that.
Mm.
And as it was getting to his close-ups and the back of my head, I had more time, so I couldn't even look at him. Like, I was just laughing so hard at a certain point that I had to actually look at the floor. I had to face my head towards him. I'd say, "What are you thinking?" And Miss Kaylin Bassett, she was like, "Raven, you're so mean," and she grabs me like the back. He's like, "Oh no, you're doing such a good job," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." But no, yeah, everyone's a goofball. Everyone's just having fun.
That is so awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eddie, for being part of the Quantum Leap podcast. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing those stories with us. That makes our understanding of the episode so much better. And I think I'm going to actually go and watch the episode again now that I know these other things and see if I can tell where they happen. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Eddie.
Well, thank you, guys. It was a blast just to relive these memories and talk about it again. Yeah, I'm smiling, and I'll continue smiling throughout the whole entire day, probably. What are you thinking?
And we're back. Almost.
I love that carried over to this show, by the way.
Yeah, I totally stole it from you. And we're back. Eddie Park. How cool is that guy, man? I thought he was a cool character on the show, but he's even a cooler guy in person. So that was awesome to get to talk to him.
Seems to have accomplished a lot for such a young guy.
Matt, him and I had a good time even before and after the recording. So just a great guy in general. So I wish him all the best. And it was an honor to have him on the show. Getting back to O Ye of Little Faith. Did you notice in all the religious talk that Daisy was doing while she was tripping on soup weed? She said, "Thou shalt not" something or other. And I was like, oh, the episode "Thou shalt not." Is that a callback to that?
Fan favorite.
Know.
Fan favorite.
Yeah,
Thou shalt
fan
not.
favorite episode. "Thou shalt not." Love that one. That's the next one in me and.
When are you doing your feedback episode on that, Allison?
Huh?
We haven't had that yet.
Huh?
Remember, we were saying when you started to go back to the original, series right to the very start. You still haven't gotten to that show.
We have not. Right? It's been on every single poll as a joke, and they haven't picked it yet.
Isn't that next up in
Fan
the order,
favorite,
though?
"Thou shalt not." You know
Isn't that
what?
next
Yeah,
up?
they've been picking it in order, which I think is
it's awesome. I like it in order.
Is how it
That's
should
what I
be
vote.
anyway.
That's how I vote.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So
that's
a time travel show going in linear time. That just doesn't work.
That's next up in Rennie's watch of it and my rewatch that we're watching it together. And I'm just like, when are we going to watch that one? Ooh, a fun episode tonight. Let's watch "Thou Shalt Not." It's
"Thou
about
shalt
kids dying.
not laughs aplenty."
Yeah, maybe I'll just like sell her on the dancing, the horror, or something. I don't know. Maybe
so are you a little bugged that you're not going to be able to do that with this season? I mean, you can't really watch this season out of order. You have to watch it in order. You can't just pluck an episode out. I mean, this one you might be able to, but the ending would be weird.
Doesn't bother me much.
Really...
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. Well, I have a feeling that somewhere along the way, someone like Matt, who likes to do a whole lot of editing and stuff like that, will probably do a fan edit just of the Leap side of things, and then you can switch them around mostly however you want, and probably a fan edit just of the project side of things. So you can watch all that in order and, watch that on the side whenever you want to. So
yeah,
I have a feeling that will come up at some point.
Whether Matt does it or not, I'm definitely going to be doing that. The Leap version.
The Leap version.
It's going to be great.
Maybe a Blu-ray feature where you can separate the two different shows in the different episodes, and you can watch the season as just the Leaps and the other season as just the CSI.
Yeah, can we make the CSI ones the webisodes that you can watch if you want, but
So I honestly going back to this episode, I think it does a great job of maybe projecting what you might see in season 2 and 3, because what you get from Ian is like the little bits that I kind of want to get from the project, like, oh, let's check out Reddit, or let's check out this, that seems to be something you would get in future seasons, rather than because you can't carry on a plot line, which I think is going to wrap itself up in this first season.
Yeah, that's what I liked about the project stuff in this episode, is that they were showing us the process of going through a leap, even though they couldn't affect it at all. But the fact that we saw them like looking through Reddit, through like the true crime section there, and kind of like showing like the process of that, is the most that we've seen of any of that, because so far the project stuff has been almost exclusively disconnected story elements that involve the overarching story, but they have maybe 1 or 2 lines about the leap, which is why it feels so much like a separate show. And this didn't feel like a separate show, despite the fact that they couldn't contact Ben through most of it.
We also got an answer to a question that a lot of people have had since the original series, very, very early on. Remember in Honeymoon Express, when the committee says, right, you have to do this this action to prove that you can do something of major significance. And a lot of people were saying, well, hang on, if Sam succeeded in doing that, all the history around him is going to change and no one's even going to know that any of that happened. So why on earth would they think that would work? Well, we saw at the end, after Ben managed to save the day, we just saw the screen go to 404 not found, but everyone still had memory of actually seeing that original timeline and it actually changing. So at least at the project, we know that there is some sort of a record of the original timelines, and they'll know what's changed, and they'll be able to show it.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't change what the committee was saying in Honeymoon Express, though, because they still wouldn't know, because whoever the senator was changes into Diana McBride, and no one notices but Al. So them saying you need to change this really doesn't make a lot of sense, because they wouldn't know. The people at the project might. It seemed in the original show it was just Al, but we only saw Al's side of things. We really didn't see a lot of anyone else. So I think that's something from the novels, like that, like the project has some sort of like bubble around it, or there's some sort of reason why the time travel works at all, because they have to know something about what the original history was, or there's paradoxes or whatever, I don't know.
But the point is, though, that we actually do have some confirmation of that now. We know that the people at the project will actually notice the change, and there must be a record.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the very least, they would have to know, because they're watching the leap happen. They wouldn't forget that the leap happened, so you would have, at the very least, remember that a leap occurred. So yeah, anyway, it was kind of interesting to see that happening. Yeah.
I wonder how much that logic, the time travel logic that they're going with, extends. Because what if Ben changes something in the past, say with Addison or Ian, to where they wouldn't be part of the project? Would they not be part of the project outside the bubble and still be part of the project inside the bubble? And also, was Ian pressing F5 repeatedly until the 404 came up, or did it just come up?
I think Belisario has said that no matter what happened, Al would always be a part of the project. Like, at some way he would find his way to the project. So one would assume that would just be what happens with the team.
Yeah, but I mean, they had the Leap for Lisa where like Al was killed, and then they had like a different observer. So I guess they could and probably will explore something like, if they change the timeline that affected the project, what happens. I hope that it's only when it's something important, because I don't want it to be like constantly there's like little things changing. Like it's, I don't really want to see that, but I think they probably will, because they have the project side of things. So why wouldn't you explore that aspect of it at some point?
So I just had a thought. What's better than one Mason Alexander Park? 2 Mason Alexander Parks. They can make it happen.
Yes.
They could make it happen.
Because the timeline made two of them?
If the timeline diverged outside the bubble and somehow there's two Mason Alexander Parks on the show. I don't know. At least for one episode. I would love that.
Well, my theory was that there were two Als. Remember that?
Yeah. So, well, there's two Als on the show right now. So I think you've been proven right, Hayden. There's two Als on the show right now. And a Juan. And
oh,
Harry.
right.
Hi,
Yeah,
Harry.
We're the two Als. I see.
We're the two Als. Yeah, we don't call each other out very often. So.
Different timelines.
Albie forgot that his name was Bert. He didn't realize that it was going to be Bert.
I had no idea. Can we talk about the most important part of this episode? Addison got to wear sneakers. I thought that was so cool. She needs to wear sneakers more often.
Sneakers.
Yeah.
She was wearing an outfit that wasn't with a brown leather jacket, which I feel has been about 90% of her outfits. So that was good, like to change it up a little bit.
Well,
she has a huge jacket collection, and it seems to be mostly very similar jackets.
I usually notice her heels, and they look like uncomfortably tight boots. And I was just like, why would you wear that if you're like got to stand in the imaging chamber for so long? And then she's just wearing like casual sneakers. And I was like, yes, wear casual sneakers. It's so much better.
She learned faster than Al about the comfy shoe thing, because Al would always be wearing like these like shoes that were like kind of dress up shoes. But eventually by the time you get to Blood Moon, he's like, I'm wearing my comfy sneaks because I got to get running sometimes.
What about, I think the character that's overlooked in this episode the most, at least I have, is the father. Was the father there for any reason of the plot, or is it like an Indiana Jones thing where if the father wasn't there, like the story would play out exactly as it did? Because what did the father contribute to this story other than just having one additional suspect?
He was a suspect. He also, they were trying to play it like, he was angry at the birthday party. They have the flashbacks of the birthday party, and he says, I didn't want any of your money anyway. And he was the reason that the will got changed. So that was part of the plot. But I've watched this episode twice, and the father, like, I never really paid attention to him either way. But I see, for plot reasons, the stuff that they laid out there. I just think he was maybe one of the characters that didn't have as much going on, so I just didn't really think about him that much.
His presence there is necessary because it would probably be like too much for the young girl to essentially have no one after the mother and uncle sent away. So.
I like that.
That's good. I mean, he has to be there to serve the storyline purposes of the will got changed. I mean, otherwise the brother has very little motive.
Yeah, they also used part of his backstory was the Great Depression. They talked about like the market crash and all that. That's why they ended up there, and why he was like too proud to be taking the money, and he was angry at his brother because he made some bad investments because of him, and then the market crashed. So their stories kind of tie together there. It kind of places it in history a little bit, having this Great Depression backstory. It helps like make it feel more like the 30s as well. And some of the episodes that they've been doing this season, I felt have not felt like the period very much. So it was nice to have it feel like more of a time travel story.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Allison, because apart from the stuff about the Great Depression, it really didn't have to be the 1930s at all. You could have similar sorts of things happening in like the global financial crisis or something along those lines as well, and still have people making bad investments, still have people losing their houses, needing to move home, still have people, wanting to kill people for the inheritance money.
True.
It was nice, the fact that they did it in the 1930s, but they could have told this story really from any time period where there was some sort of a recession.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if the 1930s really played that much into the plot.
No, I don't think. I mean, like there were 30s things in it. I don't think like every episode of the show, the original show, had to be in the period that it was. The only time in this new iteration it really bothered me that it could have taken place any time was the very first episode, just because you're establishing that this is a time travel show. Like, it would have been nice if it had felt like it couldn't have been 2022 what was going on there, but the fact that it felt like the 30s, they had 30s elements, like you saw like the 30s cars, you saw the 30s outfits, the 30s hair, all of that stuff made it, you look at that and you say that is the 30s, versus the stuff that's been like in the 80s in the show. I feel like if you look at stills of that, you're not going to know that this is a time travel show, and I feel like that's been a real failing. So I think like it's nice when you see the details like this that place it there, so that you know that this is a time travel show and not just a Incredible Hulk going to the different town kind of show.
That's a problem with the more recent time periods that I've had, is that they look too modern to me, but then I realize it's probably just because I'm old. So like the 80s and 90s just look normal to me because I was there, I lived it. So like it's not like a period piece to me because it's part of my life, whereas like 1934, I didn't live that, so I didn't see Model Ts everywhere, I don't know.
Yeah.
But look, you've got people writing down in essays now referring to like the 1980s and 1990s as the late 20th century. And I'm just like,
yeah, like I wonder how someone
and you drink the Holy Grail and then
I wonder how younger people, like young teens, may be watching that episode. Because I know, like right now, Serenity's fascinated by my Sony cassette Walkman. Like she thinks it's like ancient, whereas I still have it because I had it, and she just thinks it's the coolest technology, cassette tapes.
It is ancient.
You should try and get Harry to use a rotary phone. I've seen a lot of movies.
Just because you have one doesn't mean it's not ancient.
That's true. So I wonder if it's just our perspective makes that, but I don't know. It just, I guess I'm saying I'm old. That birthday cake.
To me, when I'm watching episode.
That birthday cake, didn't that look like it just came out of the Walmart or something?
I was wondering if it looked too modern, but I don't know. I don't know enough about pastries in the 30s to say it's inaccurate or anything.
Did people go to the bakery in 1934 and say, could I get white with like a neon pink piping? I don't know. It just seemed like they were like, oh, we need a cake. Go get a cake. Kind of like whoever was in charge of the wig in the earthquake episode was in charge of the cake in this episode. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All right.
But I was wondering about the piping and stuff, but
maybe they just grabbed it
because it was the 30s. People were just they were more into the baking aspect of it, so maybe.
What else you got?
They
to
had
do?
all the piping and stuff.
They didn't have YouTube back then or podcasts, so
this was they better enjoy it while they can too, because this was before World War II and they started doing the sugar rationing, so they really should have been enjoying that cake.
Oh, a cake made with beet sugar? Oh, probably not good. What about that Freddy Krueger wallpaper? Did you like that? Was it too close to Freddy Krueger? Was it like, has it been done too much, or was it just cool?
Are you talking about like the writing with the blood?
No, the shadow, the demon, the face and hands coming out of the wallpaper, CG style, not rubber sheet style.
The whole episode itself was a bit cliche, so that didn't bother me too much.
It might have been cooler if they'd done a practical effect and done like the kind of like the pantyhose as the wall and kind of like come out of it. But I kind of wondered about, so Daisy has these lines that are foreshadowing things that are happening, and she says like I when this first started happening, I saw the wallpaper move, and I feel like that was hinting at the secret passageway.
So did I.
But the secret passageway was through the closet, and you don't see the wallpaper. So I don't know if maybe there was a setup differently in the script or what. It definitely seemed to be hinting at that, though.
I thought when Ben was looking at the wall, he was going to push a wall out, and that's what that was going to be.
I thought that it was just setting up the fact that she was hallucinating because of being drugged.
Well, yeah, she was, but I think like her saying, I saw this, it was actually her seeing the wall opening up and then the uncle coming in or whatever. Like, I think that was, she thought that it was a hallucination. Maybe it was a mix of both, but that was them hinting to us about what was really going on. You know what I thought was an interesting moment in Ye of Little Faith is there's the part where Daisy looks over at Ben while she's possessed, and she calls him Traveler.
Mm.
And at that point, it's like, oh, is it the demon? Can it see what's really going on? Does she know what's really going on? But you can also say Ben is hallucinating at that point too. She might not have said anything to him.
Right.
And she's just like, he's just paranoid, like, oh no, she knows who I really am. So I thought that was kind of interesting because it could be, there's some parts of it you really don't know who's hallucinating what, who said anything or what happened.
How does this poison work? Because it seems to be very strong, but then after an act break, it seems to have disappeared totally.
Yeah.
Until you take it again.
It was so weird. He's like,
right?
And then, anyway, well, I better get out of this room.
It's like commercials are the antidote or something. I don't know. It just seemed weird. It seemed very strange.
I really liked that. That's what I was saying about like the build up and then pull back, because I really like that, just that huge scream at that moment where he's like totally freaking out. And then it comes back from the commercial break and he's like, ooh, dust himself off and get out of the room.
I think that's a part of what makes me waffle on whether some of the things happened or not. You get the line at the end as well of like, oh, you're going to be going now. And he's like, what? And then she's like, yeah, you're a traveler, right? And so I think those are some of my favorite fun lines through the episode.
That part of the episode
was pretty cool.
What I questioned the most about that was Daisy's scars. They were like minutes before they were oozing blood. And there they seem to be healed like a few weeks. I don't know what happened there. Like her scars were like scars and not open cuts, like almost instantly. Did anybody else did that bump anybody else?
Yeah, I guess it seemed a little like inconsistent. I don't know how fresh they were supposed to be, just that it seemed that she was injuring herself.
Mm-hmm. And again,
so you think that from injuring herself?
I thought maybe like a few days had gone by, but rewatching it, it seems like it was right after what had happened. So I don't know. That was just strange to me. But again, act break is the cure for that poison. So I guess it cured the scars as well. Let's talk about, I think, the most important character in this episode, besides, of course, our main cast. The guest star in this episode who played Lola, the psychopathic killing mother in this episode, O Ye of Little Faith, Elyse Levesque. So what do you think of her performance? What do you think of her character? Before we go to her interview, I want to talk about her a little bit.
Well, for what it was, for what she was given to work on, to work with, it was fine. It was a pretty good performance. You could tell, the anger that was boiling up inside her. It's just I didn't think that the role was right. I think that she should have either been the mother or some other, relation than the mother for the killer. That's just my 2 cents. But she did a very good job with what she was given.
Yeah, I think that scene at the end there where she gets forgiveness from her daughter and she's crying and she didn't play a giant role, I don't think, in the whole episode, but that was a pretty heart-wrenching part of that episode. I thought it was pretty cool. She did a great job.
Yeah, the acting in that scene was really great, and I think helped again bring a little bit of nuance to the character and what could have been just kind of like a cackly, like I was going to go to Hollywood kind of role. So yeah, it was kind of unexpected the turn they took there, where it was just her daughter said, "I forgive you," because that's just the kind of person I am. It's what I believe.
Such a horrible situation. I was thinking of the heartbreak that Daisy must have been going through, knowing that her mother, her uncle, yes, but her mother doing that to her. When you find out your mother,
you could see how heartbroken that she was when she found out Percival was trying to kill her. Even just her uncle. So then finding out it was her mother in cahoots with him too showed a lot of strength.
And yet in the middle of that scene, there's also that momentary bit of humor where she calls Percy an idiot or fool or whatever she says about revealing that it was actually her. So I just thought that was funny work.
I did like when like Ben is like he finds out that there was two of them and like wait what?
What? That was great. That subverted our expectations again. A great writing on the script, I believe. Okay, well, we talked about Elyse Levesque and her character Lola. Let's find out more about her character and the actress, which I'm a huge fan of from before this even. And let's talk to her now. But first, we have bills to pay. So our sponsor this week, as I understand it, is Campakes. Is that right, Hayden?
Yeah, well, I've got an interesting bit of news and something kind of funny. Listeners of the Quantum Leap podcast and the Aftershow will know the funny story behind my segment Quantum Deep. I just made up that name because we deeply analysed what was going on in the episode, and then later on found that I shouldn't have called it that because there was actually a Quantum Leap spoof porn video with the same name. Turns out Campakes has something similar. Adrian Salerno sent me a screenshot from Urban Dictionary explaining what Campakes are often known as. Please don't go look it up. You're looking it up, aren't you? Don't look it up. But so in response, Campakes has decided to put up a petition. You can go onto the website and sign the petition to get the Urban Dictionary definition changed to what it really is, which is pancakes in a can.
I would support that. I would sign that. Yeah, Adrian sent that to me too. So I was shocked. I had no idea. So I wonder when that saying came about, because that might be after Campake started, because as you know, the company's over 100 years old and family owned, and only products so good could last that long. So if you want to check out Campakes, pancakes in a can yourself, please go to quantumleappodcast.com/Campakes, click on our affiliate link, and you can get, I think, what is it? 50% off your first shipment over $30. That's pretty good. That means like what? Under $20 with shipping probably of Campakes. So use our promo code Quantum Leap Podcast Aftershow, all one word. Okay, and now.
And if you sign the petition.
Oh yeah, sign the petition.
If you sign the petition. If you sign the petition too, they're going to send you out some extra maple cubes.
Is that right? Wow, that's a good deal. Yes. That might be bribery, but hey, they're paying us, so we'll read whatever they want us to. Okay, let's go to our interview with Elyse Levesque. She played Lola.
Father Davenport, thank God. I'm afraid it's gotten worse. Please, come in.
Hey there, welcome to the Quantum Leap podcast. We're very excited today to be bringing you an interview with Elyse Levesque. Elyse, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Now, we've just seen Elyse in the latest episode, O Ye of Little Faith, so we're going to talk a little bit about that and also some of Elyse's other work. Perhaps we could just start by going back to the beginning briefly, because you've been acting since you were very young. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got started?
Yeah, so I guess I've been doing this, gosh, I don't want to do the math necessarily, but I started when I was 11 and I'm 37, so I'll leave that up to you. I am from a very small city in Canada that used to have a pretty budding film industry. And one day, my grade 6 teacher, Miss Krause, shout out to Miss Krause, came up to me and was like, there's an open call for this kid's television series that's shooting in town, and I really think you should go and audition for it. And I think she thought I'd be good for it because whenever there was an assignment in class, I always, like, if it was like, you can do a presentation or you could write a story or whatever, I always like filmed something, like made the other members of the group act it out. So I was obviously very sort of drawn toward that, to acting and performing. So she was sort of the person who ushered me in that direction. And I remember I almost didn't go. And then my mom was like, you know, like, whatever, let's just go. Let's just see what happens. Worst thing, you just go, you have an experience, like whatever. And it was so not a traditional audition. Because usually, like, when audition, you get sides, you go in and you read. This was like a sit-down interview with this casting director, Jackie Lind, who casts a bunch of stuff in Canada. And all she did for like 10 minutes was just ask me questions. And I remember one of the questions she asked me was, if you could go on a date with anyone, who would it be and where would you go? And I said, Leonardo DiCaprio, and we would go to McDonald's. And I guess that was like a good enough response, because then I got a call back and had to actually read something. And then I made it into this like repertory company of like 40 some local kids that they would use to cast in these little sort of vignettes. The show was a series of short stories written by kids that then screenwriters took and turned into screenplays. So it was a really formative experience and a really good training ground, because they taught us, because pretty much none of these kids had any experience being on a set. So they had like a 2-week workshop where they taught us like, you know, how the terminology, what you can kind of expect on a set. We did some acting exercises, and yeah, it was a really good sort of beginning. And then I remember on like the first day that my mom came to pick me up after my first day of filming, and I was like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. So at 11, I was like, I found my thing. It's pretty
amazing.
cool.
And a through line straight from there, because I know sometimes child actors have a few years and then think, you know, I've done that, it's not for me. But for you, it's just straight on.
Pretty much. I mean, I worked on a few other shows as a kid, as a teenager. And when I graduated high school, I was supposed to go do the 3rd season of this show in another province. And it was all set up and ready to go. So I didn't sign up for university because I was going to be filming into the beginning of the school year. And then unfortunately, it got canceled before we even started filming the 3rd season. And so I was sort of like left with this moment of, what do I do? I can't get into university right now. Like, I missed the window. I don't know what I would even want to study. Is acting what I want to do with the rest of my life? I don't know. And then I had an opportunity to do some modeling. So I started doing that, and I did that for about 2 years, traveled to Asia and Europe. It was a really amazing experience. And I think it actually gave me the confidence to then be sure of what I wanted to do, which was acting. So when I got back to Canada after 2 years of traveling, I very briefly went to school, you know, just something to sort of occupy myself, and also like was working a part-time job to save money so that I could move to Vancouver and pursue acting full-time. That was like 2006. So pretty steady since then. Yeah.
Great. Shall we let's jump ahead to Quantum Leap, and then I think we'll probably take some steps backwards afterwards. So could you maybe just talk me through the audition process for Quantum Leap, or how you became involved in it?
Well, the whole world now is self-tapes because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So it was just another tape that I did, one that I threw into the void. And I actually auditioned or put myself on tape for the role of Magda, the maid. And then I was out of town going to a friend's wedding, and I got a phone call that I'd booked the part. And I remember thinking, I really don't think I'm right for this part. Like, I got that part? Wow, okay. And then maybe like 30 minutes went by, and my agent called me back, and he's like, wait, they don't want to book you for the part that you read for. They want to book you for the part of the mother. And I was like, the mother? Like, wait, what character? I don't remember that in the sides. Like, what's the mother? And he's like, I think it's a better role for you. And then I got the script and I read it, and I was like, oh yeah. This tracks. This is very on brand. This is going to be great. So that was it. And then luckily too, just sidebar, I had worked with the director, Chris Grismer, before on a show called The Originals. And also, very strangely enough, he and I just figured out we're from the same city in Canada. We're both from a city called Regina. That's how it's pronounced. Mm-hmm. so I'd worked with him before, and he was familiar with my work, and he was the one who was like, I actually think Elyse is better for this other part, and luckily nobody objected.
Fantastic. And then was that quite a quick process from auditioning through to getting that news and then straight in?
So
or were you
fast.
Yeah.
Yes, it was so fast. I mean, that happens often, especially with episodic, where it's like you put a tape in on a Tuesday, and by Wednesday night, you know you've got the job, and then you've got your wardrobe fitting because you start on Friday. Like, it's usually pretty quick. I think this was like I found out on a Friday, and then I was into wardrobe on Tuesday and filming Wednesday. So I had like a little bit of time, but it wasn't a ton. It's not like months of prep or anything. You pretty much jump right into it. Yeah, you leap right into it.
And I think from the way that this episode's set up, I guess all the actors were there from day one throughout the entire shoot. Was that right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It was interesting because it's like it was kind of a unique experience as a guest star on something, because usually when you're a guest star, you're the only new kid on the block. And then they've got all these regulars who are there, day in and day out for months. But with this, because Ben is always leaping into these new worlds, you're one of many new kids on the block, which is kind of takes the edge off. So you've got all these people who are sort of in the same boat as you on day one. Like, no one knows how it's going to go. You're all trying to like find your footing. And so we actually shot, the first scene we shot was with all the characters in this storyline, which was sort of a nice way to break the ice.
Were you excited to work on a Halloween episode, and did it feel like a Halloween thing? It looks like it seems like The Exorcist, like a horror movie. Was it kind of fun doing the horror genre in this episodic TV show?
Oh my gosh, 100%. Halloween is my jam. It's my favorite time of year. I look forward to my monthly watch of The Nightmare Before Christmas every October. And so, yeah, I was super pumped when I got the episode and read that it was Halloween, and saw just even the references to sort of Halloween of the 1930s. And they talked about, there was this sort of thing written in the script, the opening scene where Ben lands in the body of this priest, and there's all these like kids running around, these trick-or-treaters, and it was like, Google 1930s Halloween costumes at your own risk. So I immediately like Googled. I don't know if you guys have seen that stuff. It's terrifying. Like the masks these kids used to wear, terrifying. That is a Halloween movie in and of itself. Like, someone needs to write that. But yeah, it was super, super fun to be filming something like that. And the house we filmed in was so spooky. And we were on the like Universal back lot, which is just such a cool place to be, like right next to the Jaws exhibit. So every so often these like trains of tourists would go by, and you could see, because they had to turn the sound off of the like, because there's like music and everything for that exhibit, they had to turn it off. So these poor people just had to like silently watch a shark like come out of the water with no sound effects and then continue on their way. But anyway, all that to say, yeah, it was really fun to do a Halloween episode, and to know that it's going to air on Halloween is also just a real treat.
It being a period piece of the 1930s, did you have to prepare any different than you would for other characters, like kind of get used to the times, or maybe like the mannerisms or language?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think sometimes it really depends on what time period you're doing, but I think we all sort of collectively as a cast you do tend to speak in like a different way, which is just more enunciation, more articulation. People back then didn't do a lot of ums and like slang and stuff like that. So it's not really in there. So it's sort of inherently in the text already, how to speak. So I didn't really feel that I needed to like put too much, like, I'm going to talk in a different way. See, like any of that sort of thing, which actually would be really, really fun to do. But I think there can be this sort of false idea. People really only spoke like that on television. In real life, people didn't really talk like that. I don't think, but from what I gather. So no, not particularly. I mean, I feel like the wardrobe and the set and so much of just the accoutrement of the space, etc., just really did so much of that work for us. And then just making sure you're not slurring your words and speaking clearly, etc., I think is just really what I tried to kind of focus on.
I'm always really interested with whether it's scary movies or something like this, a Halloween episode in an ongoing show, where the actors are trying so hard to make every beat as terrifying as possible. How do you take the edge off between shots? What's the atmosphere like on set when the cameras aren't rolling?
I mean, you just have to hang around with Raymond, and it's light and funny. Like we were to the point where sometimes, because you just get so comfortable with each other after a few days of working, filmmaking is such an intensely bonding experience that you start to you feel like family after even just a week of working with these people. So we were just like, I remember dying laughing and making jokes, like right as Chris would be like, action, and then we'd all have to like be scared, or like I was emotional a lot of the time. And so it had a pretty light feeling to it, just sort of the set in and of itself. Like it's a real lovely, playful place to go to work. So hopefully that didn't get in the way of the jumps and I don't think it did. I'm sure it all came together great. But yeah, I've done my fair share of horror, and I actually find that those sets tend to be the most fun, where people are like making the most jokes, maybe to sort of counter the intensity of like, oh, you're chained to a bed and like blood's dripping from your eyes or whatever the insane thing is that you're doing. There tends to be a lot of levity on those sets from what I've experienced.
We're nerds here at the Quantum Leap podcast, and as well as most of our listeners, I'm sure, would identify as nerds. So, of course, while we have you, we got to ask about Stargate Universe. You were so amazing on that show. What was your experience like on that? Yeah, thank you. I mean,
that's a lot to get into. That was like 2 years of my young life. It was one of the most special experiences I've had. I feel like I've had like 3 or 4 experiences in my career that have been so impactful and special and just sort of different from the other experiences, and that was one of them. We, like the cast of that show, speaking of family, we were so close. We would hang out on the weekends and take trips together, and do all kinds of stuff. And it was such a huge disappointment when we didn't get to come back and finish that story. Hopefully at some point someone will write something. We'll be able to at least like wrap it up, because we're all still floating in stasis pods in outer space. But yeah, it was wonderful.
Is there ever any talk between you all of like, maybe one day we'll do it, if it comes along?
I mean, for sure. If it came along, I know, I'm telling you right now, you can hold me to it. I would do it. I would totally do it. If someone, Brad or Robert, were like, we've written like a movie to sort of wrap the whole thing up, I totally would do it. I think David Blue and I have talked about that a little bit, but no, I think it's probably that thing where, people have moved on to other things in their life, and you never know. I know that there was a Stargate movie coming out. Did it already come out, or is it being made? I can't remember, but it didn't have anything to do with.
Yeah, Stargate Universe is really one of my favorite shows. I love all of Stargate, but Stargate Universe was really special to me. And one of the episodes you were in, and was one of the best episodes, I think, of television of all time, of any series, is the episode Time.
That's one of the episodes that when I think back on that show, I think of filming, because we were filming in rain for Days. It's that episode, right?
Mhm.
Where we're in this like
Mhm.
alien planet and
Mhm.
my character gets an alien through the chest. Do you
Mhm.
remember that? Right? Okay, yeah. So, funny story. When the whole regular cast of SGU signed on to the show, we all were only guaranteed the first 6 episodes. Our contracts were such that they could drop us after the first 6 episodes. I don't know why. That's like not really a thing that I've heard of happening, but it was part of the deal. So everything's going along great. You know, we're all bonding as a cast. The show's a blast to shoot. Episode 6 comes along, and Brad and Robert did not give any of us a heads up when they sent us the script for that episode. And in that episode, every single one of us dies. So we all thought, as we were reading, I start reading it, and like Chloe died pretty quickly with an alien through the chest. And I was like, oh my God, I've been written off. Oh my God, like they did this to mess with us. But then as it was going and everyone was dying, and once they killed Rush, the main character, I was like, okay, this is some sort of like prank that they've pulled on us. It ended up obviously still being the episode, but it was one of those like solar flare sort of wormhole things, and we're all actually still alive in another universe. But so anyway, that was kind of a nasty little prank that they played on all of us.
Yeah. Halfway through that episode, I was like, well, they're going to have to undo all this because they can't go without half the people, you know, so.
Yeah, they've killed their entire main cast. It was very Game of Thrones of them.
Yeah. Back then, they didn't do that kind of thing, so.
No, they didn't. Yeah. Yeah, I love that you love that episode. That was such a fun one to film. Yeah.
Just the whole series is great. The whole series is very watchable, bingeable. So,
I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much. A year or two ago, I did like a Stargate podcast. So this gentleman was doing this thing where he's going back and talking about the episodes and whatnot. And he wanted to interview me about Air Part 1 and Part 2. So I watched them. I hadn't seen the show in 10 years or something. And I watched it and I was like, this was a great show. It holds up. Like all this time later, the effects hold up. The content holds up. The acting holds up. I was like, yeah, I'm very, very proud to have been a part of that.
The acting and writing were so good. It was about the people and the characters. So that's what makes shows great. So that's like how I first became aware of you. And I thought you were amazing in that show. And then later on, I was watching the originals. Can you tell us a little bit about the originals? You spoke a little bit about it earlier, but yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah, because I worked with Chris. I worked with Chris on that. I would say that's one of the other ones that's like a pretty special, was a pretty special experience. I got to go film in Atlanta, which I'd never been to before. Just absolutely loved working out there. I think it's such a great city. And I was so bummed when I got the invitation into the office and was told that I would be dying next episode, because I became very attached to everyone there and was very welcomed into the fold. And I think that was an interesting job because I didn't know what it was going to turn into for me when I booked it. I thought it was just a guest star. I thought I was just doing one episode. And then I went and then I sort of heard like, well, you're going to be in a couple and then you're going to have this one really prominent episode. And then we don't really know what's going to happen after that. So I sort of prepared myself for like 3 episodes of work on this. And then luckily, I think they just liked what was happening with Joseph and I and the chemistry and this dynamic that I don't think they had the intention of turning me into sort of one of the villains in the back half of that season, but it just sort of presented itself and they were like, "Ooh, this is an interesting opportunity. This is an interesting place to go with this." So I ended up getting to play on it a lot longer than I thought I was going to, which was a very pleasant surprise and fun too. I think that might have been like my first sort of bad guy, my first sort of but complicated villain. At least I can't think if I've done anything before that. So that was fun. That was fun for me to play.
Awesome. I also wanted to ask you about your time on the Orville. I'm a big fan of the Orville. So
That's an interesting story. So that was my last in-person audition before everything shut down. I think maybe it was like 2 weeks before the lockdown happened here in Los Angeles. And I heard maybe like a day into the lockdown, like you're pinned for this job, but we just don't know. Nobody knows what's going on right now. Anyway, the pandemic unfolded. And then November of 2020, as the industry had sort of started to get, going again, my manager was like, hey, can you do a slate for the Orville? You're still up for that job that you were up for like all of these months ago. So I did a slate, didn't hear it. A slate is, I don't know if you know what that is. It's just where you say like, hi, my name's Elyse Levesque. I'm 5'9" and I'm based in LA. And they pan up and down your body. And yeah, anyway, didn't hear anything for another 2 months. Was in Hawaii doing a job out there. And then I heard like, it looks like you're going to get that job. Came back to LA, got a phone call to go and do prosthetics, did prosthetics, didn't know when I was going to be filming or any, like it was because of COVID, it just sent so many things, like so much was up in the air. Shows were shooting in sort of untraditional ways to accommodate the possibility of someone getting sick and having to shut down production, et cetera. Anyway, and then obviously it just aired this past like July or June.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
It was like a 2 year, so it was like 2 years almost of this this thing that I had gone in an audition for. It was just a guest star on something. It's not like it was like a massive studio film and they had all these like special effects to do and all these things. So that was kind of a crazy story or a crazy experience. And then that was my first time wearing heavy prosthetics. Actually, that's not true. I did wear some pretty crazy prosthetics in a show I did called Masters of Horror years ago.
Where
I was like, where I got axed in the head and my face was split apart. So my eyes were technically like over here. So I was blind for a whole day on set while we shot this sequence. So I had to be led around everywhere. And like somebody had to like sit me on the toilet. It was awful. It was awful. And so I was like, at least with this, I can see. But then they put those contacts in you and you can't see. Those things are insane. I don't know how actors who have to wear those day in and day out, how they do it. Because it took me like 30 minutes for my eyes to adjust to seeing again once they would come out. But anyway, once I was there and doing the job, it was great. Seth was lovely, super fun and easy to work with. And it was such an efficient set to be a part of and to be on. It was pretty surreal, actually. Yeah, it was a fun job.
Is there anything, before we start to move towards a wrap-up, is there anything about the experience on Quantum Leap that we've not touched on? Any other stories you'd like to share?
Oh, gosh, not off the top of my head. I mean, I know we got into like telling ghost stories and stuff a bit. Yes, in the theme of like Halloween, we were all kind of like sharing little stories and stuff. I wish I could remember some of what was shared, but that was like a fun little thing that we did. And
can you remember the ghost story that you shared? Would you be able to share that with us?
I have so many ghost stories. I don't even know which one to tell first. If I lived in a haunted apartment in Osaka when I was there modeling, and I was for like weeks experiencing just weird little things. In the middle of the night, it felt like something was shaking my bed. And then I had this little portable alarm clock, and I would set it every night and put it beside my bed. And every morning I would wake up and it would be knocked over. I was like, what is going on? It's Japan, like there's earthquakes. Is that what's happening? And so then I asked my roommate, Linda, I was like, is your bed shaking in the night when you're sleeping? And she was like, no, my bed doesn't shake at all. I sleep no problem. And I was like, are you coming over to my side of the room by chance? Like, because my alarm clock keeps getting knocked over. And then it started to be knocked over and like moved further and further away from the bed. And she was like, no, why would I come to your side? The door is beside my bed. I'm like, okay, weird. So this one night I had to get up really early to go do a job in somewhere outside of, actually, sorry, this was Tokyo was where my apartment was haunted, not Osaka. I had to go outside of the city to do a modeling job. And so what they would do is they would print these long pieces of paper, and they would have, this was before iPhones. So they would have the directions in English and in Japanese. So if you got lost, you could like show somebody, maybe they'd help you. So I had this like pretty sizable piece of paper. I went to bed at like 9:30 because I had to be up at 4, tacked it to the foot of my bed. The other girls, I think I lived with like 3 other girls. They were all awake and in the living room. I'm laying there on my side and my bed is shaking, doing its usual like shake thing. And I'm like, just another night in Tokyo. And then I start to hear like paper crinkling. And I was like, what is that sound? What is that? Roll over, not paying attention to it. The crinkling keeps happening. I sit up, I look up, and I swear I'm not making this up. So it was tacked to the wall, and it was like something had it and was pulling it like this, like trying to rip it off the wall. And I just watched for like a few seconds in absolute shock. Like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then I kind of gasped. I went like, and it let go of it and it fell against the wall. And I jumped out of the bed and ran into the living room and was like, oh my God, and crying. And I told the girls what I experienced. And my roommate, Linda, who was like 13, burst into tears. And then this girl, Ludmila, who was older than us and she had stayed there before, she just very calmly turned to me and went, don't you know this place? It's haunted. I was like, what? She's like, yes, many other models, they've experienced things here. I was like, what? And then the next night it happened again. So on Monday I went into my agency and I was like, I need to move out. I can't live there. And I was like, it's haunted. And they didn't even blink. They were like, oh yeah, we know. Okay. Yeah, we'll move you. I'm like, what? So there you go. Do. Spooky season stories.
Wow. Well, I'm not going to sleep tonight now. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I've got lots more where that came from.
I asked for that.
You did ask for it.
a perfect ghost story for Halloween night.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There you go. There you go.
So we've talked a lot about the present, about what's been happening with Quantum Leap. We've talked about your past roles. Can we look to the future now, maybe? Is there anything that you've got coming up that you want to share with us? Any projects ongoing?
Not a lot. I just did an episode of NCIS, which aired a week ago. And then I did recently, there's this show up in Canada called Jan, and it's about this Canadian musician, Jan Arden. She plays herself. And one of my really good friends created the show for Jan. And they're sort of doing their like end of the show special, which is going to be a Christmas special. And so I was just up in Canada doing that. It's a fun, quirky comedy sort of thing. And I played this very creepy photographer. So that was a fun, challenging little experience. So I don't know when that will be out, and I don't know if that will air in the States. I know that you could stream Jan on Hulu. I don't know if that's the case anymore. But so I've got that coming up. And other than that, just like hustling, trying to do some writing and producing and seeing where I can get some stuff going on that side of things.
Fantastic. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that.
Thanks.
In the meantime, thank you so much for your time, Elyse. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And we're back. Welcome back
Albie,
to the Quantum Leap Aftershow.
You silly goof.
I'm being silly. Elyse Levesque. I loved her in Stargate Universe, and I was so glad that we got to talk to her. Like, I was fanboying out the whole time. I tried to edit it out, but it was very difficult because I was just a giddy, happy fella.
Ghost Stories gave me goosebumps.
Well, this will make you happier, Albie. You've never looked lovelier.
Oh, thank you. That's the nicest thing anybody ever said to me. It's funny if somebody clicks on the video at this point. Okay. So, Aunt Tessa, when they took her picture in the, I guess hearse or what was it? I don't know, some kind of body wagon they had in 1934.
They chucked her in there.
They did.
Get the picture, please.
They had.
You think her ghost showed up at the end? It's like, oh, you forgive them, do you? You forgive them for murdering me. Cool.
That would have been cool. That would have been cool if we saw her ghost at the end. She almost looked like a ghost because of the bloody eyes. When they were carrying her down the stairs, like the blood looked real on the sheets, like if it was dripping out of her eyes and her mouth. But then in the back of the ambulance or whatever, it looked like two ghost eyes. You know, like on Charlie Brown, Great Pumpkin special or something like that. So I thought that was weird. But it made me think of something. What do you scream when you're running away from a ghost? Sheet, 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 sheet.
It's sheet season.
Sheet. Sheet. No.
You're so obvious.
No. Okay.
I like it.
Okay. That's what Ben should have said when he came in? Sheet. It's his catchphrase.
I did like at the start, a little callback to the B-Man.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I did.
Okay, that was close.
That callback at the beginning was pretty cool. I liked that.
Which callback? I missed it.
The numbers turning at the top of the door.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. I really like that. That made me think it was going to be like a retelling of. Oh, I almost said it. I didn't say it, but luckily I didn't say it. So, final thoughts. Final thoughts on "O Ye of Little Faith," Juan.
I've said it a few times now. It's my favorite episode of the season so far. I enjoy that it didn't have very much to do with the leap or with the project. I mean, I like heavy leap focused episodes. It's Quantum Leap. I mean, that's what the whole show is about.
On a 1 to 5 scale, what would you give this episode, Juan?
I'll give it 4 hand links.
4 hand links. We'll take it. Hayden, final thoughts on "O Ye of Little Faith."
Well, like I said, I think it was a very good episode of television, just not a good episode of Quantum Leap. So I'm going to have to only give it 3 DeLoreans out of 5.
Harry.
And what about you?
Final thoughts on "O Ye of Little Faith."
Man, pretty good episode. A few things that I wasn't a huge fan of, but overall, great setting. It was what I was expecting for a horror episode. I figured it was going to be quite like a lot of cliches in it, which there were, which I was like excited for because I think they're funny. But as an episode, I thought it was really good. I'll give it 4.5. I'm going to go with kangaroos because I'm Australian.
We'll take it.
4.5 kangaroos.
Not very good to eat, by the way.
And how that goes.
By the time it ships here, not good.
I did not enjoy kangaroo.
Actually, kangaroo makes good.
I don't think No, I would not eat kangaroo. There, nothing with no.
No, it's very lean. It's pretty much just the same as cow, but it's much leaner. It's good food.
It has too many pockets. I'm gonna go ahead and give this 5 Walmart birthday cakes out of 5 because it was just a fun episode. It was a great holiday episode. I just like the Halloween of it. There was a few plot holes that maybe I just don't understand yet, but I think all in all the script was very well written and everything was well performed. And I liked the look and the feel of it. The music was really good. Set design was really good. The costuming was really good. I can't think of anything I can really complain about this episode. It's one that I look forward to watching probably every Halloween. So I'm going to give it 5 Walmart birthday cakes out of 5. Allison.
Yeah. Well, hey, Albie,
Yeah.
we can do a science fiction double feature now every Halloween, can't
A
we?
real one. Because I still can't pronounce
Yeah, we
Tahotep.
have 2 Halloween
I still can't pronounce Tahotep. Allison, final thoughts on Oh Ye of Little Faith.
Give it a 4.5. Oh, hell knows. I greatly enjoyed it. It's a little nonsense, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
I love Halloween. I love the whole vibe. I thought the 30s was really cool. They
Mm-hmm.
did some interesting stuff with it, and I think there were some genuinely funny and scary moments in it.
Yeah, I definitely got some humor in this episode that I wasn't expecting, and I loved it. I really did. And again, the stuff back at the project, though limited, which I did like, it was quality, and I liked the quality of the conversation and the relationships between them, and less CSI, more personal relationships. I did like that.
When Addison hugs Ian, just like that, like at the end, like jumping on top of them, that was cute. I like that.
I want to be there. I want to be at headquarters. I want to hang out with those people. So maybe one day, if I get my wish, if I get a golden ticket, if I buy the Quantum Leap season 6 Blu-rays and I have a golden ticket in there and I get to hang out with Mason Alexander Park and Caitlin Bassett, all them, and Ernie freaking Hudson, that'd be great. Okay,
Well, hey,
Juan.
Albie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, hang on. I was just saying, do you think that the standing set for Project Quantum Leap, the stuff at the project, is at Universal Studios? Because if so, then you can probably do the tour and experience yourself in the set.
I believe they are on stage there, aren't they? I think it's on Matt's website. So yeah, maybe.
I would say they probably are, yeah.
I'm hoping for a personal invite for the Quantum Leap crew at some point in the future. Got my fingers crossed. Juan, I know you.
Yes,
I
sir.
love you. I know where I can find you. I know where I listen to you all the time. But for people that just met you on this show and have no idea who Juan Morrow is and what Thinking Outside the Long Box is, please tell everyone where they can find you, what you do, and who you are, and all that stuff, all the good stuff.
You can find us at totlb.com, Thinking Outside the Long Box, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are the pop culture umbrella of Barren Space Productions. We got a couple Hellraiser episodes still to come out for technically October. But we've probably got, I think, 450 episodes out right now. We've got almost 200 special episodes, which are just interviews. We just recently spoke to somebody from the anthology AMC Walking Dead series coming out of Comic-Con San Diego 5 years in a row. We got to do press interviews with the cast and the crew from both Walking Dead series. We got to talk to Bruce Campbell at Comic-Con. I mean, we've talked to so many different creators from the movie world, from the comic book world. But everything pop culture, if it's coming out and it's new and it's geeky, we're talking about it. totlb.com.
Not many people know this, but I was actually deputized as a member of the TOTLB crew, and I got to do some interviews with Juan at Denver Comic-Con, and that was great. I interviewed many people, including Jason Voorhees. Check that one out. He was a talker, would not shut up. Gab. It was great. We got along.
Yeah, we spoke. We spoke to the original Hannibal Lecter. You're wearing the mask. We spoke to Brian Cox as well. That was a great interview. We've talked to him a couple of times.
Andy Weir. That's one of my favorite episodes. Hey, you know a guy named Gabe. You know a guy named Gabe, right, Juan?
Yes, sir.
I've been trying to get him on the show. See if you can nudge him for me.
He's busy doing his own things right now. He's got a couple of businesses. You could find me. We're dressing up today, so I didn't wear my Cichlids hat, but I also own an apparel company that does anything: hats, T-shirts, whatever you want, we'll do it. I would normally be wearing that hat, but I'm coming in Doctor Who garb. So
I like it. Can I make a suggestion? Cat ears on every hat.
I'm not sure they make hats with cat ears on them.
Harry, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I really appreciate you coming on. And
no worries.
was
being
nice speaking.
being
Breaking some things explained to me that I didn't understand.
That's cool. It's
So where can people find you if they want to stalk you?
Oh, you can find me at KFC. That's usually where I'm at. I work there. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great to talk to new fans that haven't been with it since the beginning, because it's Quantum Leap's one of those shows you can always just jump right in. So it was awesome to get to speak with you. So thank you very much. Allison, where can everyone find you?
Well, you can find me on the Quantum Leap podcast, where we talk about Quantum Leap. You can also find me on youtube.com/movie nights, the series, where I talk about all sorts of stuff. So Bad It's Good movies, Baywatch. I do have some videos about Quantum Leap as well, Star Trek, all sorts of stuff where I try to be funny.
You succeed.
That's where you can find me.
You succeed.
Oh, thank you.
My favorites are the Star Trek ones and the Baywatch Nights ones. And I don't watch Baywatch Nights, but I watch the videos you do on them. So they're that good.
Thanks. That's going to be my next video. It's going to be a Baywatch Nights,
awesome.
Where Mitch Buchanan fights a vampire.
Ooh, I'm excited. All right. Well, thank you guys for being on. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Allison. As always, thank you, Hayden. And thank you, Harry. Wow, this was really jam-packed. I appreciate everybody staying up late with me and talking about Quantum Leap. For the Quantum Leap After Show, I'm Albie.
I'm Juan.
Is it me next? I don't know what order we went with. Okay. I'm Allison.
I'm Harry.
And I'm the time paradox, the results of which could cause a chain reaction that would unravel the fabric of the space-time continuum and destroy the entire universe. Named Hayden McLean.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the next episode of Quantum Leap. All right. Have a great night, everybody.